Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Catch-Up Ramblings. Once again, we're here to catch up on the questions that we didn't quite get to in Ramblings on Monday, as we normally do on a Friday. And oh my sweet Jesus, there is a face I've not seen in a long time. The mad libertarian in the audience there. How you doing, Caboose? But yeah, so I have been very, very busy. Japan trip is now booked. That's all squared away and sorted. My bank account is a lot lighter than it used to be. £4,000 to the shy. No, I'm not Emperor Fleet.
Yikes.
Yeah. Hey, we're £1,000 up.
Normally it's about 2k.
We're £1,000 under budget.
And again, I guess you're doing what? Is it like 10 days or something?
No, Dragon, I'm out there for a month. 4 weeks.
4 months?
4 weeks.
Yeah, Japanese customs added a special host lovers surcharge.
That explains a lot.
Damn it! That's not. Shut up! Stop!
I see. It's like those
cretins.
taxes that they're trying to put on anime figurines leaving the country. I see.
No, actually, they're really decreasing that because they're wanting to get it out to further culture groups so they can eventually assimilate the world.
Hey.
Yes. Drown the world in
Why do you think Bandai
anime
Namco
and
figures are so cheap? Unless you're looking at like perfect grain Gundams and such.
Do not flame.
But bear in mind, before we start,
looking at
online, I got called a racist Nazi for not liking anime.
What?
That's a new one.
That is a new low. We have reached new levels of low.
Because apparently not liking anime makes me xenophobic.
That's not how that works.
in the nicest way, Foxo. I have much stronger ground if I wanted to call you xenophobic.
No. Timu? No, we're trying to keep Fleet away from the shrine so he doesn't end up having to commit various different acts to prove his honor. Or to regain his honor.
Yes, he will do the puzzles if he goes to those.
Yes, Knight. Fleet will get jet lag. Knight, jet lag comes with the territory. That's just what you get when you fly that level of distance.
Question 1, Fleet. What class did you take?
We've had to book. We had to book economy because if we
book Ryanair?
If we didn't, no, it's Japan Airways. We didn't get the Finnair flight sadly because it didn't work. The problem we had is that because of what we were booking, it's very glad we did. Because if we tried to book anything that wasn't economy, the price didn't just double; it basically tripled from 1,500 for the return flights.
All I'm going to say is
4,000.
Make sure you stand up at least and walk about at least 3 times on that flight.
I have
genuinely.
Dragon, I have been on long flights before. I know how to handle myself.
I don't. What's the longest flight you've been on?
What was it? 16 hours.
Cute.
Dragon, this flight's 14
Japan is
hours.
awful.
Dragon, this flight's 14 hours long. It's not the longest.
Yeah,
flight
but
I've
you're
ever been
14 hours in economy.
Yes, but it's not.
I did that to Vladivostok.
I don't need the patronization, thank you very much.
We're not. We're offering you assistance.
Well, you're going to get it anyway.
I don't need assistance.
I will turn you into Paris. You will become French.
The costs involved were such that it was non-viable. It was either go economy or don't go at all.
Which is fair.
You could have gone Luftflotte.
Not really.
Like, politics aside, they're cheap.
No. I mean, literally, the only flights that were going on the days we needed it, at the times we needed it, from where we needed it, were these flights. So we basically were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Right, okay, let's crack through these questions.
Hard place.
Shut up.
Just remember, don't get your gooner ass kicked off the plane.
Oh, fuck off. How? You've no idea what I'm like in real life.
So, can we tone back to shit posting, maybe? Possibly? Potentially?
You Americans are weird with your posting of shit. Like, we get it, you've got a bad president, move on. Sorry.
I mean, there's the small fact that I might be getting designated a terrorist in the next week or half, but yeah, we just got a bad president. We can move on.
Yeah, that may have been a little bit off color there, Fox. So even for you.
Don't say that.
Anyway,
You don't say off color when you're talking about American politics, my guy. Anyway, move on.
Typical Gunner Officer asks, opinions on the P-47 Thunderbolt's performance during the pre-introduction of the Merlin-engine Mustangs over Europe. Do you think it's inferior to both German and British aircraft? So I'm just going to let Rubinon read her note out verbatim, because it is very funny, and she can probably do it just as better than I can, before I get my normal first stab at the question. Because it is funny.
The sounds of a grumpy dreadnought awakening echo through the interwebs. You have awakened the hive! My genetic memories of working on the Thunderbolt product line have become activated and find the premise of your question annoying to my ancestors. The Thunderbolt was not inferior to its British and German counterparts. It was the best long-range escort fighter that the United States Army Air Forces had prior to the Packard Merlin Mustangs coming into service. Yes, the Mustang is better, but it is not a quantum leap. It's not like taking a Thunderbolt 2 up against a Lightning or a Raptor today. It was like taking a F-15 against an F-16. They are different, yes, but they are both adequate at that type of role, the air escort role. Once the Mustang comes in, you see the P-47s still doing the escort role, although now the bias of the air fleet is going more towards the ground attack, close air support role. It's a pure aircraft of its equivalence, and I wouldn't say isn't significantly outclassed until maybe the 262 comes online. But I think some of the first 262 kills were done in Thunderbolts.
No, they were Mustangs.
And politely, if a 262 is tangling with a P-47, something's gone horribly, horribly wrong. And that
I thought they got one.
They've got a claim, they don't have confirmed. The Mustangs have got the confirmed shootdowns.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. It's not a materially inferior airframe. It's just the way it's built out. It's tough as nails because I think that is still an air-cooled radial. You're a lot less sensitive to damage than a Mustang is. And it's just better protected overall with its design. So
yeah, the P-47 the P-47 works for the period that it's a frontline fighter.
Okay, I'm going to have to push back on some of this, because in the long-range escort fighter role, Runon's right. But for the other fighter roles they tried to push it into Europe, it was inferior. That's part of the reasons you see them get moved off a lot of the other fighter roles, like interception and air superiority, and why the Mustang is so much better.
I'm gonna push back on.
No, and I'm gonna say that because it was a fucking heavy airframe, but it wasn't a heavy enough airframe that, yes, the radials are durable against machine gun fire, but a 30mm or even a particularly lucky 20mm will detonate a radial like it'll detonate an inline.
I'm gonna push back on that. Basically on the grounds that I understand where P-47s came up against. Basically, it depends on this old caveat of you do have situations where P-47s get domed, as Foxer is quite correct, but it's usually where they are older models fighting later models. They're not fighting their peers. Any engagement, basically, where a peer P-47 met a peer... Not so much the FW-190. The FW-190 was just flat-out superior to the P-47's peer for peer. But where a peer 109 met a peer P-47, the 47 absolutely fucking domes it every single fucking time.
Yes, but consider the 109, by the time it's doing this in 42, it's a warmed-over 1936 design. That's like saying, oh, the P-47 can dome a late edition Hurricane. Like, Yeah, the different generations of airframe. If it couldn't, there would be an issue.
I would disagree with that because while I do understand the premise there, the Hurricane and the BF-109 are not comparable at all. A better
They
comparison
are.
would be Spitfire.
But
Hurricane,
consider they both see introduction in 36.
yes, but they are
They've
not.
both got the what would be by wartime low power. Yoda 109s have the low power inline BMW, so have the low power injected engines.
Yes, that is true.
V6 engines.
And I'm not
They're
denying
Hurricane equivalents that keep getting warmed over. Up until the massive high capacity V12s.
I can't accept that comparison. The BF-109 is a significantly better fighter than the Hurricane.
Yeah, because it gets re-engined. That's the difference between them.
Well,
there's a reason why the Luftwaffe is trying to replace the 109 by 41 and 42. Because the airframe's obsolete. It's having issues at high speeds. They've had to redesign the entirety of the nose for the bigger engine. It's having torsion issues. Sorry, not torsion. It's having issues with its wing roots. Because they've had to put because the wings were designed for machine guns, now they're putting in heavy cannon. They're trying to make it into a fighter bomber. The 109's not comparable. The 109's heyday was the Battle of Britain in 1940. By the time the P-47s are there in significant number, it's an obsolete aircraft.
Fair enough, but we do also see examples where P-47s also dome FW-190s.
Yeah.
So again,
but to get back to my point, the fact is that when you take it out of the long-range escort role, where the P-47s were the best aircraft into service, until the later Mustangs to get the drop tanks, and to the late Mustangs, because the late Mustangs get ridiculous. It's a very good escort fighter. When they're trying to do interceptions with them, they try and use them to shoot down V1s.
Well, yeah, that's...
And the aircraft's fucking heavy.
Okay, yeah, the V1... Yeah, okay. The interception of V1s was a very specialized task that very few aircraft were actually capable of. I will not allow you to use that as a mark against the P-47.
Okay, so Spitfires did it, especially the Griffin Spitfires did it.
Mm-hmm.
The Mustangs did it. The Mosquito did it. The Meteor did it.
You've just listed off some of the highest performance fighters in the Allied Air Force.
I also listed off his two contemporaries, the Mustang and the Spitfire.
Yes, but you also had to specify that the Griffin engine Spitfires were better at it. And also, again, as I said, you're talking about a very specialized task requiring a very specialized way in which you fight. The Thunderbolt was not designed for that role.
Yeah, that's why I said in the escort fighter role specifically, it was a very good aircraft.
Yeah, but
for the other fighter roles, like being an intercept and air superiority aircraft, it's lacking compared to its contemporaries.
I mean, in the
developed alongside.
In the air superiority role, the P-47 did fairly well, from what I remember. As long as it wasn't flown stupidly, but any aircraft is vulnerable when flown stupidly.
Its big issue is its weight. It's a high-powered engine, but it's also a very heavy airframe for what it is.
That's true, but again, like I say, you have to actually fly the aircraft as a P-47. You see a lot of the problems. Yeah. You see a lot of the... Go on, Ruinon.
I'm just doing some quick math here. The P-47D-40 Thunderbolts that are running at R2800s have about 6.6 horsepower to the pound. And for the P-51D, you're dealing with divided by at war emergency power 1720. While inertia is inertia, the P-51D Mustang, e.g., the quintessential Mustang, has 7.03 horsepower to the pound. So you're dealing with less than half a power per pound difference.
But when it comes
yes,
to
it's heavier. The inertia is definitely going to affect the handling of the aircraft.
Yeah, and its energy retention is the specific issue.
Yes, that inertia is going to affect the handling of the Earthcraft. The Earthcraft. We are now flying Earthcraft. Aircraft.
Namek.
What was the other one you said? Griffin.
No, it was just this bit at the. Well, I can't remember what model Spitfire is, but it's not quite the Griffin yet at this point. The Griffin was the comment about the V1s.
Yeah, but I'm going to look it up anyway because I'm peckish. Specifications for the Mark 14 Spitfire puts that aircraft at, this is the gross weight, 79, 23 divided by, let's call that 2050, is surprisingly a lot worse. Something's wrong there. Something doesn't make sense. Huh. Well, the math I get shows 3.86 horsepower per pound, which I don't feel is right because then this thing should be absolutely fucking anemic.
At that point, you're looking at the Mark 10s.
So either Wiki is wrong or something. I'm not comparing apples to apples here.
If you're using the Wiki, there's a good chance it's using the Pacific Spits.
Possibly. I feel like we have
which
done
are a different kettle of fish because they're much heavier.
I did max takeoff weight on the P-51. I do max takeoff weight on.
I feel like we have hit this question over the head quite a lot.
Quiet, Fleet. She's doing maths. Don't disturb her.
So hang on, I gotta revise the number. I gotta revise the number on the Thunderbolt. The number on the Thunderbolt's wrong. Oh, my numbers are inverted. That's why it doesn't make sense. Okay. It's not horsepower per pound, it's pound per horsepower that I've solved for.
Hey.
So the Thunderbolt's got an extra 1.75 pounds over the Mustang.
Maths.
And the Griffin is significantly better than the P-51D. It's got about half as much weight per horsepower.
Yeah.
That's why the numbers don't make sense. I'm looking at them backwards. This is why I'm not an engineer.
Technically, you aren't. Unless I check, you are. So, by the UK, you would be, because electricians are engineers.
Trust me, yes, I'm an engineer. I think we put this thing right here.
You're not an engineer, Blade.
Your literal thing.
I am an engineer.
What are you engineering in?
You are an electrical engineer.
Fleet just claims as an engineer. What did you do in engineering?
Well, I got a
ugly ship design.
What was it called? It was a BTEC in engineering from the AMRC University of Sheffield.
A BTEC?
Is it a level 3 or
level 3? I think. But it's been a while.
I haven't used it
in a while, so it's been a good decade since I've ever actually used it. So Like
I thought me doing 2 years of uni and dropping out was.
I did 3.
This is why
I still hate my uni for including a random assignment on computer coding in an electrical engineering course.
Yeah, this is why I literally say I'm technically an engineer.
You are not an engineer.
It is a technical.
Anyway,
moving on.
You are an Englishman in a kilt.
Before we move on, I think Hood had their hand up. Did they? Yes, no, maybe, possibly.
I'm not sure.
They've been invited to speak.
Anyway, Ruinon asks, you can make one change to a fundamental rule or mechanic from one tabletop game of your choice, up to and including removing, replacing the rule entirely. Which rule do any of the panelists choose to alter? I honestly have no dog in this fight, although I suppose technically if I have to pick a game that I play regularly, I mean, I suppose, I guess in chess, allow pawns to take in reverse.
You don't aim small, do you, Fleet?
Well done. You've just completely upended the entire balance of chess.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
You, in fact, quite possibly have just made the pawn one of the most powerful pieces in the game.
I'm aware. I know. Look, it was the only thing I could think of.
This almost reminds me of the communist version of chess.
Anyway,
I would do some at more
Fleet is presumably sober at this time.
I am still sober. Yes, this is true.
Please maintain your sobriety. We have a lot of questions to chew through.
Don't worry. I'm not starting on the source till after the Hoi 4 game starts.
May the odds be forever in your favor.
Yee. Anyway, so, next. So, who's next? It's Foxo, I think.
Yep. Well, simple. On the transition between 9th and 10th edition Warhammer 40k tabletop, they got rid of a whole bunch of stratagems. This included a stratagem that Dragon will know that is very close to my heart.
That's why I also know that you got the numbers. That's why I also know you got the numbers wrong.
Yes, it would be 9th, wouldn't it? No, not 9th.
It was 8th to 9th. It was 8th to 9th.
8th to 9th. They play 7th, mostly. There is this stratagem called a Chain Lightning. Now, what Chain Lightning did was make Tesla weapons for the Necrons viable. Because it allowed you, if you hit a model, to use a command point to Chain Lightning, so the lightning laser fired by the Tesla weapon could hit models behind cover. And was guaranteed 1 damage if you hit the one guy. So say if you hit squad of Space Marines, you hit 1 Space Marine. You triggered it. Oh look, every attack that hit that Space Marine did just 1 wound to everyone in his squad.
So basically, you cast Hey Shit Ass Wonderwaff DG2.
Basically cast Chain Lightning, yes.
So you're basically wiping units of infantry off the face of the planet. Yes, I can see why this was toned out.
However, the Tesla weapons were absolutely shite against single models and vehicles. And so, and Immortals that could actually use these were relatively expensive by infantry standards. Because they weren't quite Space Marines in stats, but they were better than Guardsmen. They were almost Space Marine costs. So pretty balanced. They were like anti-Horde army weapons, brilliant against orcs as well. They got rid of that and slightly buffed the hard stats of Tesla weapons. Now on Immortals, there is no reason to take Tesla weapons. Half of your arsenal is just irrelevant because Force weapons are now just better. If I could do one move in any tabletop game, it would be reverse that change.
Now, there is a particular reason that she's neglecting to mention here.
Yes, because all my mortals are made.
Making... It doesn't matter. That's perfectly legal to change. you can just run them as anything you want and even store games. No, the thing she's not neglecting to mention is the reason why Chain Lightning was removed was it was one of the most overpowered abilities in the game.
Yes, I can see this.
It literally allowed you just to go, that squad's dead, that squad's dead, that squad's dead. And she says it's anti-horde. No. It was anti-elite. That squad of 10 Terminators, dead. That single squad, that is a quarter of your army cost, gone in a single attack run.
Yes. But she still had
this
to
is why
hit.
she is neglecting the completely uncontrollably overpowered nature of that ability.
Yes. I will also point out that Terminators and a lot of the heavy elite infantry still got their invuln saves against it. And you still had to actually hit them and do damage.
Terminators don't get invuln saves at that point most of the time. If you had certain things, you got invuln saves.
And the squad could just feel no pain the entire Chain Lightning, which was annoying as hell.
That means you have to roll a 5 or better.
Yes, and consider that to trigger Chain Lightning, a Tesla cannon had to wound. These were 1 strength above las guns, hitting stuff like Terminators.
Gentlemen, I hate to be that guy, but whilst
Quiet, I'm ranting.
No, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut
It was strong if you wounded.
I'm sorry,
If you wounded.
I'm putting my foot down. While I appreciate this is
so you're once again showing that if it's a question you're interested in, you'll give it as much attention as you want. If it's not, you'll try and cut it off short. I see.
No.
Anyway.
It's not really...
Anyway, to Ruinon's answer. Well, no, Dragon's answer.
No, if Fleet wants to move on, we'll move on.
No,
no, we're not moving. We're not moving on from the question. That one, I'm going to put my foot down.
Yeah, that wasn't my point. My point wasn't to move on from the question. It was just we're getting a little bit out into the weeds here.
Although I genuinely don't think that, as much as I disagree with Foxo's opinion on the durability of Terminators, I don't think she has run out her entire 6 minutes. But
yeah, like
A, I haven't because I've been timing it, and B, Terminators used to be actually durable. And they used to do batshit insane damage. And like it was just like vehicles counter Tesla weapons hard. They still do. But now Tesla weapons don't have their saving grace of you can pop heavy infantry. Like, at this point, just shoot Gauss guns. Because Gauss guns are like las guns, but slightly better. So they can pop guards. Fully fire them, you can pop Space Marines. Terminators, they get fucked. Unless you've got a Cryptek running around. Even then, stuff like Destroyers.
You would have guessed they don't want your basic infantry to, be able to counter anything and everything.
But these weren't your basic infantry.
They were.
No, Warriors are the basic infantry. Immortals got the Tesla weaponry.
But Immortals were still classed as basic infantry. They're part of the they were always classed as battle line infantry.
Yeah, but so are heavy intercessors, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, but heavy intercessors. I would call heavy intercessors.
Yeah, but so are Sisters of Battle. But yes, they ruined it, and they've made the Necron so much worse to play. Because you can't have a medium infantry mass army.
I'm glad I have no dog in this fight.
Yes, Chandelord, we're talking Necrons. Because they suffer hard. Because they got rid of the one ability that made their units useful. Quiet down.
I'm just glad that they toned down the Satan shards. Because the Satan shards were fucking broken in 9th.
Yes, they were our equivalent to Primarchs.
No, not Catan shards weren't.
Anyway,
Catan shards weren't.
Correction, they were our equivalent. They were our equivalent to Magnus, and the dumb shit he could do.
Not quite, but.
Because they were the closest thing the Necrons got to Psychers. They were brilliant. Oh, then they've been nerfed into the ground.
Because you've got a problem also then here, Runon. Because my choice would also get Foxo going again.
Well, you have 6 minutes. So
The fact they removed personal abilities from most units.
which ones are the personal abilities?
So basically, correction. They dropped down squads and models now only get one ability and one core rule, unless they are someone where they get an aura.
I don't know what
So
this is.
my Astreus went from having 4 unique rules that gave it actual versatility and use to one ability, which is completely useless most of the time, because you want. An enemy Titan does not care about how, or even what you're meant to be shooting, does not care about having -1 subtracted to its wound rolls. Or not even wound rolls, to hit rolls. It does not care.
Admiral Wellesley, it is my question regarding you can make one rule change to any tabletop game of your choice, including to the core mechanics. I think I said core mechanics. Did I say core
Yes.
mechanics? So the verbatim question is you can make one change to a fundamental rule or mechanic from one tabletop game of your choice, up to and including replacing the rule entirely. Which rule do each of the panelists choose to alter? And I will note that once again, this is 2 questions before Drac had to go and tend to meat space stuff. The dang dirty meat tuber.
Yep. But yes.
Because
And
it also
I
then
interdict?
it also affected Necrons.
Yes. Because, fun fact, Tombstalkers used to get actually useful abilities, like the ability to climb, the ability to use cover despite being monsters, and that was an ability. You'll never guess what they did. They got rid of all the interesting stuff and left you with a useless ass ability. Or the option to take a literal 6 in Von, if you can get the cryptech that allows you to get quantum shielding on them. That's it.
Because
Which admittedly means if you build a very specific army, they're viable, like Titanicus has proved. But they've made the Necron destroyers, especially the Locust destroyers, viable, not by buffing them, but nerfing everything else.
Oh, Chandler, this question will return on Sunday for Brew Ships because I want Dr. Clark's opinion on the matter.
Because it especially affected large-scale users. I understand the point of simplifying the rules, and it actually was an amazing thing, so games don't take 8 bloody hours now. But, especially when you're paying £250 for a 525-point model, which is meant to be, yes, this is the big centerpiece of the army, that is meant to be almost a second warlord in nature of how many abilities it gives, or has. And then being reduced to, yes, if you hit enemy, they suffer -1 to hit. Well, what bloody point is that? Previously, it had 2 different forms of invuln saves, because it had a unique shield ability, so it got standard invuln, and then it also effectively got a feel no pain on a vehicle, which was glorious. And it basically meant you're trying to charge this vehicle? Cute! No! -6 inch to all charge rolls made versus this model. And I think it's also within a certain range of this model also gets this debuff. Because overpowered repulsor fields.
Yes.
It is incredibly frustrating. This complete removal of abilities.
But you know what made that thing balanced? Yes, it acted as a second warlord, but in return it was fucking expensive. Now it's just expensive and shite. Don't get me started on the Eldar. That seems to had the fucking psychic phase removed.
Are you done with your point, Dragon?
But now I need to get into something out of the oven anyway.
This way, we don't absolutely cause Fleet's brains to liquefy out of his ears. And
you're talking Warhammer. I don't know what you guys are saying. All of this is just mumbo jumbo to me. But I'm sure it's valid and good conversation. Like
puddle all over his host body pillow.
I am not downplaying the quality of this conversation. It is just completely out of my wheelhouse. If you like it, carry on.
For my answer, it's going to be also. Well, okay. So I have a meme answer and I have a serious answer. The meme answer is just called D&D 2024, whatever the refresh, quote unquote, that's supposed to be completely backwards compatible of 5e. Just call it 6e because it's not backwards compatible to 5e. And the language on D&D Beyond indicates this. They've completely overwritten the 2005, I think it was, the original 5e. Just call it 6th ed and make it good. But that's the meme answer. The actual answer is for 40K specifically, ditch the D6s in favor of D12s. Because there's too many factions for it to be sensible on a D6. I am sorry. A unit of guardsmen should not be hitting one worse than a unit of Space Marine snipers. Yes, you can make all the arguments you want to about volume of fire and shit. I call bullshit. Eldar should not be hitting on 3s. Eldar should be hitting higher than 3s, or lower than 3s, technically. Have a higher hit chance than that. Just put it to 12s. Custodies should be always hitting better than Marines do. Votan should be hitting better than Guard, but worse than Marines. But there's no space for Votan to hit better than Guard, but worse than Marines. Because we're on a D6 system. There's no room. There's not enough integers on a D6 to appropriately space it out when 1 is always a fail condition and 6 is always a success condition. Barring some modifiers that come up from time to time. So, just go to D12s. Either that or cut a bunch of armies out of the game, which they're not going to do because that's going to stop how many models they sell.
Okay, Monkey's Paw, they removed the Votan, and you can no longer have your Votan.
That's fine.
Right.
I just wish they'd removed the fucking Eldar.
No.
Moe, what's your rule you want to remove?
Oh, no.
Send Eldar to the Imperial liquidation camps.
I just got here. I don't actually know what the question is.
So the question is, you can make one change to a fundamental rule or mechanic from one tabletop game of your choice, up to and including replacing the rule entirely. Which rule do each of the panelists choose to alter?
This requires me to do too much thinking, so I'm going to skip for now.
Okay, moving on. You should Minecraft Watcher. What is the panel's opinion on the Ersatz York design? It's the logical escalation of German battlecruiser design after the Mackinsons. I don't really have much more to say than that. Like, the Mackinsons are a logical escalation from the Hindenburgs, and the Ersatz Yorks are a logical escalation after that. There's not really much more to say to that. They stick with the basic German idea that the battlecruiser is a fast wing to the battle line in addition to being a scout. What you've just basically got is the armor's staying about the same, but the gun caliber is increasing. So you go from 12 to 13.8 with the Mackinsons, and then you go up to 15 with the Ersatz Yorks. Again, they're just logical escalations of preceding doctrine and ship design. And given that they weren't finished, I don't really have much more to say than that. We have the specs they were supposed to be, which again, like I say, apart from the escalation in primary firepower, are really very much unchanged from the ships that have come before. Armor is roughly equivalent, speed is roughly equivalent. Yeah, like I say, it's just the whole doctrine they're built for and designed to fight under is basically the same. there's not really much to say on the Mackinsons and Ersatz Yorks in and of themselves. You can talk a lot about what might have been and what they could have done had they been built, but to talk about the ships themselves, there's not really much to say on them. Like, to repeat the point I've been making throughout this entire little thing. They are just the final point that escalation in German battlecruiser design reaches, once it is stabilized on the paradigm that laid down by De Flinger, and followed through from De Flinger to Hindenburg, from Hindenburg to Mackinson, and from Mackinson to Ersatz York. I don't really have much more to say than that. Whether they would have been good or bad ships is hard to say because they were never finished. And you can never really get a true measure of a ship unless it actually is finished. Alright, Foxo, you've got 6 minutes if you want it.
I completely disagree. This is going to sound strange, but looking at them, they showed, as I'm seeing and looking them over, at their designs, they look like, without the hindsight of knowing the treaty's coming, they look like they're obviously on launch. And they haven't learnt the lessons of war with them. Which, given how they're coming off the Mackinsons, which are modified with the lessons of war to them, they're... yeah. They're very much ships of... So... These would have been excellent before World War One.
This isn't really you disagreeing with me, it's more you just adding additional context outside of the design specifics I discussed, but go on. You're not wrong, but you're not really disagreeing with me, you're just adding additional context.
It's because of the context they're built for, they're not adequate ships. Because their design, looking it over, they're a design that hasn't taken into account since their flinger how much things have changed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, as I said,
and sort of with a very similar whole subdivision with the same deck armor layout, the use of casemates, where it's become obvious that casemates on this sort of level aren't really working.
If I may, Fox, though, can I choose an interrupt for a second? I will point out that a lot of the things I've been reading more information while you've been talking. It does seem that the Ersatz Yorks, given that they are replacing the last three of the Mackinsons, are supposed to be almost in essence a wartime expedient to try and get 15-inch guns into the German battlecruiser fleet when they learn about, the Renowns being rapidly constructed. That's what I think they are. Now, that doesn't change everything you've said. They are, quite frankly, very reactionary in how they appear. The inclusion of some obsolete design features like casemates, etc. And again, the lack of armor. But I can probably say that the reason behind that is the desire to not redo as much of the design work as possible in order to get the ships laid down as quickly as possible and into service as quickly as possible. Now, that doesn't change everything you've said, but I would just bear that in mind.
Yeah, but it's... And the Mackinsons, a lot of their designs are warmed over their flinger with their subdivision and their strength and bulkhead, and base having no torpedo defense. Yeah. But their lack of armor backing, the Mackinsons are warmed over their flingers, and Ersatz Yorks are warmed over Mackinsons.
The Mackinsons I can kind of understand, because it's Like that's where the whole gradual escalation makes sense. I think with the ersatz,
consider that they're a reaction to Tiger.
Yeah.
But they don't have the features that make Tiger able to punch above her weight.
Yeah. Because the thing is, the deflingers, I'm just going to enable us to do a bit of back and forth here. The deflingers work because their armor is designed to comfortably resist their own guns, and I mean comfortably resist their own guns.
Yeah.
That no longer applies to the Mackinsons. When you
So
jump
context,
up to 13.8...
Quickly.
Yeah.
They're protected from the British 12-inch 45 and the 12-inch 50.
Yeah.
Just what the contemporary British battle cruisers are using.
Yeah.
Aside from Lion.
Yeah, and the important thing is that they're not just protected, the deflingers, they're comfortably protected.
Yeah.
Which means they also have an edge case against stuff like 13.5, but it's an edge case. The problem you've got with the Mackinsons is they don't do the same thing for their guns. Which, for them to be a competitor to Tiger, they would have to do. They don't do it, though.
It's sort of... Actually, that's a really good way of doing the difference between them. It's... The Mackinsons and the Deathlingers, I give them slack because they're operating under the pre-war notion of what a battle cruiser is.
Yeah, the German pre-war notion of what a battle cruiser is, but yes, go on.
Yeah. By the time the ersatz Yorks are being designed, even if we take their earliest design period, that's already been shattered. Both navies have realized, okay, how we build the battle cruisers.
I'm going to give you an extra. I'm going to give you an extra 2 minutes, Fotso, because we've been going back and forth.
Okay. And these ships, the war that we want to fight with them isn't really possible with both sides having battle cruisers, which is a hindsight reading of it if you go look pre-war. But during the war, it's become obvious. And the British are looking at fully armored battle cruisers at this point. Like the successors to the admirals are looking at being fully armored battle cruisers before Jutland. So before the revision of the admiral design. And it's like the issue with the ersatz York is they're a really good ship for a paradigm that has been shown to have changed.
Yeah, they are. They could not more clearly be. So go on. Yeah, go on.
Which makes them a bad ship in my eyes.
I think Foxo's absolutely right. Even if viewed as a desperate redesign of the last three Mackinsons to get 15-inch guns into the German battlecruiser force quickly, even viewed through that lens, by the time they come in, you'd be looking, and the Germans know this, you'd be looking at things not just the renowns, you'd be looking at whatever the admirals turn out as, which, you know, like, put an ersatz York against Hood, even especially redesigned admiral, Hood walks away from that easily. So even then, at that point, they've basically gotten... There's no excuse for these ships being the way they are. Do the design work and come up with a proper 15-inch armed battlecruiser. Would you agree with me on there, Foxo?
It's... Use an analogy. It's the equivalent of going... The Royal Navy going, oh shit, the Germans have escalated gun caliber. Okay, take HMS Lion. Make her bigger. Up her armor slightly. Give her 15-inch guns. And not getting rid of the obsolete design features. And not adding in improvements that Deathlinger got revised with. That Bayern got revised with. That even the Germans with the dreadnoughts were looking at. This idea that you can build a battle cruiser and back the armor plate. Not the armor plate itself, but the backing behind it. The idea that they don't need that backing, or they need a lot less of it, has been proven false at this point.
Yeah.
And the Germans know this because the Germans design around it with other ship designs. They don't with the Monarchs, the Yorks. Anyway, I'm done.
Right. So Dragon, 6 minutes. If you, yeah. 6 minutes if you want it, Dragon.
They weren't what Germany needed at the time. Effectively.
Anything else?
For most of the reasons discussed above, but they're not an efficient design. They're not really looking forward. They're more looking backward, it feels. Yeah.
Would you say that the almost rushed nature of their design does show? Would you say?
No.
No?
I'd say it comes down to basically a complete doctrinal failure of them. Like, to be fair, they're not even that rushed. Because they were being built in 1915 through the fact they also take so long and they don't get anything from them in the end was just a waste of time and resource. Honestly, they're an almost perfect example of failures of their designs and of the German naval economy in general.
Makes sense. Oh boy. Hell in a handbasket. Ugh. No way? Anything you want to add?
I heard that over here.
I mean, not really. Fox basically covered most of the points I was gonna hit. I'm mostly just like, man, they're really optimistic about the weight they're gonna hit with this design.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna hit 30. I don't think they're gonna hit 33,000 tons. They're definitely gonna shoot over once they start realizing, oh shit, this is gonna be a lot heavier than expected.
So do you want to know why the reason that they're so light in those designs? The armor belt over the machinery isn't backed. For those that don't know, most armor belts, they have a, honestly on Dreadnought herself, it was a backing of teak wood, right? That would, because when a shell hits an armor belt, the armor belt in that area will shatter, it will fragment. That's why it's only good for 1 to 2 hits. So it's important, depending on the guns you hit, to have a backing plate that can absorb the impact and absorb splinters. Because we're not talking small splinters from these armor plates. Against 13.5-inch guns, assuming a non-pen, there's not enough backing to stop splinters from the force. It's still got the backing against 12-inch, which is nowhere near enough.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so sorry, I just realized I hijacked Moe's.
Damn it, Fox.
No
It's all right. We're all. Okay, so Ruinon. Anything you want to add?
Earthsat's Yorks were boats that were supposed to exist, I guess. Next.
Okay, Brackerman. Question: what have you learned while doing the rambles? What were the good memories? What are the bad things you remember? And what would you have done differently? I've learned a lot about organising things like this, for one thing.
What organising?
I've learned about communication with people, especially guests you want to bring on, doing things in advance, getting everything arranged ahead of time.
You have?
Do you mind? Can I get through this without being interrupted every 5 seconds, please? Thank you.
We're just in disbelief.
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer this question now. I'm going to be interrupted every 5 bloody seconds.
Go on. Next question.
I mean, okay. The reason I say you have fleet is because, like, I didn't know when Ramblings were going to start today until I saw that everyone pinged that Ramblings had started.
Did you not see the? Oh, never mind.
You don't have a posted schedule, Fleet.
She's got you there.
And yes, your start time has flexed. It has
we are
flexed
moving
considerably.
on because I'm sorry. If I'm not allowed to put forward my experiences doing ramblings, then I'm not going to bloody finish this sodding question. If all I'm going to do is get bloody catcalled every 5 sodding seconds.
The catcalled if it's true.
Well, I get catcalled and I'm hot as fuck, so.
You get the point I'm making. I'm just trying to relay my experiences doing this show, and I can't even fucking get 5 seconds without being shit on. So, politely, I'm moving on.
Very well.
Yeah, I'm not fucking happy.
Welcome to how a lot of us felt it previously.
Anyway, now that we've sufficiently piddled in cornflakes.
This pittled me.
Nice.
Pissed.
Ah. Why'd you piss in cornflakes?
Night, where is
Right,
my YouTube
American
schedule?
cereal.
Night, my YouTube schedule is fairly straightforward. You get a ramblings on Monday, you get a catch up on Friday. What's not to know?
That's the barest of a schedule.
There is nothing else.
It's also
That- As in
not
time.
posted anywheres.
It shouldn't need to be. Look.
Without a time, people don't know when to get there for. For all I'm aware, technically speaking, ramblings could start at 2 a.m.
That's apply a little bit of
It's
common
only
sense
due.
to-
It's only due to me being here for so long that I know it roughly starts somewhere between 4:45 and 7 o'clock, with an average of between 5 and 6.
You've applied a little bit of common sense thinking there and solved the problem
But
yourself.
it's something that I've had to do to figure it out. And
Now,
also, even then, it is an hour time gap. I could go and have a meal with a family in that gap and still arrive either on time or late.
Now, I'll freely admit that I haven't put up a schedule this week for myself. That's just because brain goo not working well. But most weeks, I would say, out of 10 weeks, 8 weeks, I've put up a schedule. I put up an ad announcements that looks like what I just dumped in rambling text. And it tells people what they can expect, and I'm usually going live within 30 minutes of the posted time. I really wish I hadn't said I should be out of the batch painting for the next little while, because I'm going to be stuck in batch painting hell until I turn 80. Yes, Foxo, I am aging in reverse.
Yeah, Chandlord. No.
It's also, I also go that little bit of extra mile to get the timestamps put in Unicode, because I know that I have people that are in my community from Eastern US, Western US, Europe broadly, and Oceania, Australia, Anzac.
Look,
so this way they can see in their localized time when I intend to be going live.
Look, Chandlord. I made a schedule on Twitch because I get paid on Twitch. I don't get anything from YouTube. I do it as and when I can. I've tried to keep it as regular as I can, but at the end of the day, I don't get paid from YouTube. So, politely, I just go on the ad hoc basis that we currently run on. What about basic human decency?
The basic human decency is pushing it a little bit.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like
a Victorian style hood.
That's very nice. I like that hood.
I like that paint color.
Isn't that just hood in basically the Far Eastern Squadron camo?
No, that's tan. That's the summer camo for Mediterranean and Far Eastern work from the Victorian period.
Yeah, that's Victorian white.
It is, but they also run a very similar one in the interwar period and World War II for Far Eastern of gold and white with bits of black.
Yep.
No,
I think
it's golden. It's golden grey.
Yeah.
That camo is the Victorian one, and that's marble white. That's shiny white.
Yeah. I think Bone Mill Boy basically puts the whole thing best. Like, I still do this mostly for fun because I enjoy doing it. While it is something that has attracted a lot of momentum, it's still not a job. I don't earn nearly enough to make it to a point where I think about putting significant amounts of time out of my day for it. Because I am very busy during the week nowadays, since I actually do have a job that does pay my bills during the week. You'll notice this week there was no stream on Tuesday when there was one scheduled, because I was literally so fucking full of back pain that I couldn't move after I got home. I had to fall into bed and hope that I was going to be able to work the next day. Again, this is the sort of thing I'm on about.
Sea Daughters, the answer to that question is how long is a piece of string? I think cost per round for 308 is probably going to be around the dollar mark at this point. I know 9mm has been hovering around the 20 to 25 cents per round mark.
Wait. Night. As far as I'm aware, a lot of YouTubers don't make scheduled posts on their channel's posts page. I've been looking around. I know Drac doesn't. Dr. Clark does. But that's Dr. Clark. He does things his own way. But I can't think of any other channels I know of that...
There is a fundamental difference, though, because so much of your content is live.
Yeah.
Whereas Drax, almost none of his... he has, what, one live stream a month? Maybe two?
I'm not a VTuber. That's the point. I'm not a VTuber.
No, but you are a streamer.
Actually, VTubers are a really good model for this, like, ironically. Because a lot of those do have schedules, because most of their content is live.
Yeah, it's a so Dr. Clark has kind of moved to more of a premiere model for his pre-recorded VODs, which you could argue, should that be treated like a live? Should that be treated like a VOD? Do what you want. I'm not going to pick sides on that one. I tend to treat them more like VODs than I do lives. But especially when you've expressed in the past that you wanted to go pro or semi-pro with your streaming and content creating. You do have a Patreon, which has 2 people subscribe to it, I think, based on the questions that we receive.
There's also the fact that I think Ruinon made a good example of it. Brain meat sometimes not function, and I am a forgetful bastard at the best of times.
Yeah, which is why I try and sit down on the Monday or the Tuesday and put a schedule out, and then I can hold to that. And if I do have an issue where, brain is soup and not functioning correctly, I just put out an announcement saying, hey guys, I'm going to be late, or I just need to call it because I don't have the spoons to do it. This way people know what's going on, and you don't have, like me, I'm here today because today's my day off. Well, now, yes, I had to do the question move over because there were some additional questions that Fleet didn't get to, and I wanted to clean things up and make them easier to read. But I don't want to be on my one day off a week, technically, well, not including the weekend. I don't want to be sitting on my can during the middle of the day for an hour and a half waiting for a live to start, because I know it starts at vaguely 12:45 my time, but that's a very vaguely.
Like I say, it's just a matter of me trying to get into the swing of it. Like it's been a rough couple of months, I'm just gonna say. The new job has knocked me for 6 and basically somewhat upended the regular schedule I had got into. I've managed to keep the big things going, like ramblings and such, and Sunday streaming, but you'll notice a lot of the previous content has fallen off or gotten shorter. So the Twitch streams for Rule the Waves, and Railroader. I mean, Railroader just packed up all together.
Yeah, and Bone Meal Boy, this is not us making fun of Fleet. This is feedback.
Like I'm just like I'm trying to get ahead of it. Like we will get round to it when we get round to it, but just there isn't. I have no set timetable for improvement. Improvements will come, but just as and when I get round to it.
Yeah, you do small iterative improvements as you can.
Yeah, like as I get round to like thinking about it, I'll like it's like there was a like literally the whole thing with Twitch was like, oh hang on, I can do a schedule, and then I did a schedule, and that's there, and I've remembered to keep it on top of it, and like, and there will and there will come a day where I go, oh shit, I can do YouTube. I should do YouTube scheduling, and then I'll do that, and then that will become the new normal.
Yeah,
like
I mean the nice thing about the schedule in Discord, because I don't make events in Discord because frankly there's nowheres for people to hang out in my Discord while I'm streaming that they can also listen to me. So, not that if people want to hang out in general, they can, but I'm not going to be there. You can just copy paste, and you just update, however you've got it set up. You just update the things that change, and you go from there.
Yep, makes sense. But yeah, like I say, improvements will be coming. But yeah, I may as well finish the rest of the question now that we've hammered out that.
And also, very technically, as Fleet currently has a artistic avatar of himself on screen, he is at least a PNG tuber.
Probably, yeah. I really need to get around to having Soul finishing that with probably Ruin on Dragon and Foxo as the last figures.
Ouch. I'm too young to feel this old.
But yeah, so in terms of good memories, for Ramblings, it's got to be the anniversaries. So the 2-year anniversary, which was in the 2-year anniversary, the Big 50, the 4-year anniversary, and of course last week we had the Big 100. Those are the those streams always stick out to me as like some of the best of Ramblings. We have a good time. We really do throw the questions through, have some special guests on, all that good stuff. They really are quite special. Bad things about Ramblings, on very few occasions we have had stand-up rows. Very few occasions, but they're very, very rare. And I can think of only one time off the top of my head, roughly, and this is very, very... This shows how not often it happens. It was over something daft. What was it? Either way, yeah, those are the bad things about Ramblings, but they're so rare. What would I have done differently? Do you want the honest answer? Nothing. If I do anything differently compared to the way Ramblings historically developed, it wouldn't be Ramblings.
I'd like to put an asterisk. Get rid of the sex of Hitler incident.
What?
Excuse me?
I don't...
Anyway, continue.
No, move on. I have enough nightmares about authoritarian figures in my life. I don't need to add to the pile. So let's just please move on.
Yeah. YouTube Minecraft watcher. What if after World War I, the Mackinson class was acquired by the USN through the treaties? Would the USN change the caliber to 14-inch, and would it mean the 12-inch would be removed from the roster? So the Mackinsons aren't finished at the end of World War I, but they are, I think he says. Let's see, how complete were they? So they were. So at least one of them was floated. Let's see how many of them were actually. Okay. So. Okay, so they can all. So they were all in a position to be launched. Okay. Okay, so yeah, none of them are actually finished. Right. So Yeah, given the various states of construction they're in, a redesign for US service is basically almost guaranteed. If you are going to take these ships into service and they're not finished, you may as well pay the expense to refit them with US machinery and US armament. So, yeah, you are probably going to see a switch to the 14-inch gun. You are going to see an entirely different secondary battery. You're probably going to see US machinery. And that's going to lead to a class of 3 battle cruisers. They're probably not going to be as fast as the US wants. You're probably not going to break 30 knots. In fact, they might be with US machinery a little bit slower. So you might be 27 and a half knots compared to 28. And I mean, you'll have 3 battle cruisers with 8 14-inch guns. That's gonna be a useful asset for the US in terms of a fast wing. It's gonna be something they don't quite have the doctrine for, since post-war they're looking at things like the Lexingtons. And they're looking at the Lexingtons basically as a proper OG battle cruiser. And basically going with the doctrine that, well, we can't really reliably armor against our own guns at the size and speed of ship we want anyway.
Actually.
Okay, quickly.
About the doctrine thing, the US Navy is probably the one Navy that actually has the doctrines to use these things. Because the Mackenzans are designed as battle cruisers. Heavier built than the Invincibles, but not by much. And the American doctrine for battle cruisers is very anachronistic, and would actually have a place for these. Doctrinally.
If you, okay.
Yeah, done.
Chandlerlord, I would disagree with that fundamentally. They are not better ships than the Lexingtons.
Oh God, no.
Because here's the thing that everyone, the more I've read about the Lexingtons, the more I look at them and go, the US is actually 2 steps ahead of the curve. They don't have the design lineage in battle cruisers to do what the British are doing. So they do the next best thing. They basically accept we're not gonna be able to armor this ship effectively against its own guns. So we may as well make it really, really quick and hit like a brick shithouse.
Interject. There's a difference between armoring against your own guns and having 6-inch cruisers capable of penetrating most of your armor, including into vital machinery spaces.
I don't know what Lexingtons you're looking at, but the Lexingtons were at least armored against armored cruisers and light cruisers.
They're not.
They're not.
Of the magazine spaces, they are resistant to 6-inch. They are not resistant to 9.2.
Or even 8-inch.
Well, they resist. Well, the 8-inch didn't exist at this point in Royal Navy surface.
But
they're protected from the 7.5.
Yeah. Like, at the heaviest, the belt is 7-inch. That was the design that was approved.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, it's not a flat belt, let's not forget. It is an armored, it is an angled belt. 11-inch.
It's a very thin strip.
Yeah.
But either way, I would argue that these Mackinsons they're probably a good stepping stone for the US to develop their battlecruiser doctrine. But I don't think you see a meaningful change in the Lexingtons, and I don't think if they do proceed with them, they change in any significant way.
You know.
What do you mean, Foxo?
Because the Americans have just seen Right, the Americans' main threat profiles is Japan and with the British, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have seen these ships fail against the Royal Navy. With very little.
Did she just stop for anyone else?
Yes, she
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's eating something apparently, and it's tripping
having
up her
food.
did. But
noise suppression.
fuck. So these ships didn't. When you say these ships, do you mean the
Lightly armored
German-
battle cruisers.
Do you mean the German battle cruisers as a whole? Because the Mackintons aren't finished by the end of World War One. Oh dear, I think we've actually lost her.
She disconnected from in-game.
Admiral Leslie, you can look in stream Q&A log. If it has a green green chicken mark. A green check mark, then they are either answered or are being answered if they are the tail end Charlie question with said mark.
I mean, the thing we've also got to bear in mind is the Mackintons will be taking the place, basically, of the Lexingtons in the build queue, in essence, because the US is going to have to finish them to a revised design.
Could be so whack.
It is. You're probably not seeing any change to protection, but I reckon everything else changes. Machinery,
Actually,
firepower.
I expect them to change protection quite a bit.
What do you mean? Please elaborate.
The RSAS York do not meet the requirement the U.S. is looking for a battlecruiser under their new fast wing, which didn't exist until, after the war. The entire point the Lexingtons were 35 knots because the Omahas are 35 knots. I don't think they're going to find 27 knots acceptable. So they have a few choices in terms of what they do. They could force it up to whatever speed they want it to be, but that basically means removing whatever protection and possibly even additional turrets in order to fit more machinery so that she goes maybe 32 or maybe 33 knots in order to keep up and maintain with the U.S. In essence, a fast scouting squadron. Or she doesn't. They don't. They end up not getting placed in the scouting squadrons. They end up being in the battle line.
There is a cursed option I did just think of, gents.
What, aircraft carriers?
Yeah.
Thinking of a cursed option?
Oh god, no.
Because I'm just thinking, if the US has an option to put forward things for conversion, are they going to want to convert the new Lexingtons they're building, or are they going to do what everyone else is trying to do and squeeze things through the treaty otherwise? No, but no, even then, they're still going to want the Lexingtons because that still gives them a more capable ship. So it's not going to be the...
No, that the Americans have realized how bad the Lexingtons are.
Well, that's again, bad is a bit of a... I do
No,
think...
the Lexington is straight up a bad design.
As a battlecruiser, it's not a good idea.
As
It's
a
still
large,
bad.
as a enlarged scout cruiser, fair enough, but there's a problem with that. Your enlarged scout cruiser is heavier than most of the capital ships of the world at this point in time. The only ship it comes close to is Hood. And you have armored it like it's an enlarged scout cruiser.
And it's built like a large light cruiser.
Its internals are not even battle cruiser style.
That's basically...
They are large light cruiser, which is bad.
That's basically what they are, to be fair.
Yeah.
This isn't a
And
good
a large
thing,
light
though.
cruiser is a failure of a concept, and they are failures of ships. As surface warships, asterisks, because Lexington and Glorious was good as carriers.
Curious, you mean?
It's really hard to call Lexington a battlecruiser in essence, because what they really are is just really big. They're really big, courageous.
No, they're really big scout cruisers. They are basically massive Omahas. That's what they are.
No. Actually,
I believe
they're
that is
not.
what Morris said they were kind of were earlier, but
They're not large scout cruisers. They're a modern retelling of the Invincibles.
I would agree with you, but not
Fuck all armor. They're built like a cruiser. Their design speed is specified so they can keep up with protected cruisers and scout cruisers. They've got fuck all belt armor. They're not protected from their own guns. They have very limited strengthening behind the belt. And for their time, they are stupidly fast and uncatchable by anything else on the planet.
Right, okay.
They're just the Invincibles.
Okay, tell you what, look, we are getting, look, I'm not denying that this is a very good discussion, but, and honestly, you've all come up with excellent points, and I'm not trying to argue against them, but we have kind of got a little bit off the topic of the Mackinsons and US service, so I feel can we probably just pivot back slightly? I know we are rambling, and we do the ramble, but...
So before my internet died, I was going to make a point about the Mackinsons and Lexingtons.
Yeah.
When the Americans get the Mackinsons, and if they're forcing them into service, they will very quickly realise, oh shit, our concept of what a battle cruiser is hopelessly obsolete. Because battle cruisers, 8 years the Lexington Senior, are more heavily built and better protected from them.
Yeah.
Foxo, they're going to get reality checked.
Foxo, while I desperately wish that was the reason the Lexingtons were the way they were, no, unfortunately, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. The Lexingtons were basically the US going, we see your more heavily armored ships. We reject them outright. You're doing it wrong. And unfortunately, the same thing will apply here. Well, look, I wish you were right. I wish you were right, Foxo, and that this is what would happen. But unfortunately, historically, the reason the Lexingtons were the way they were the US basically rejecting battlecruiser development, period, despite knowing about it and going, no, fuck you, you're all wrong. I wish they would do what you said they would do.
But they were only able to do that because how they justified internally was, oh, only the British are doing that. And we have a different fleet doctrine to the British, so we need different ships.
No,
because it's noted that when the American battle squadron was with the High Seas Fleet, of all the battle cruisers in the navies, which would you think the American attaches had the most interested in? Was it Tiger? Was it Lion?
You mean the Grand Fleet, not the High Seas Fleet, right?
Yeah, the Grand Fleet, sorry.
Well, yes, yes, this is all true.
They
but,
had the most interest in the Invincibles.
Well, yes, this is true, and I'm not denying that. Again, like I say, this doesn't go against what I've said. But I would point out the fact that this again wasn't just something that they were looking at the British and going, yeah, no, they were looking at everybody. They were looking at the Germans' philosophy. They were looking at Japan, in particular, the rise of the Congos. And again, they were all going, no, you're all wrong. Even the Japanese with the Congos, no, you're wrong. You don't need that level of armor. You need to be faster than that. Like, so yeah,
with the Congos.
Yeah, Fox, so I understand where you're
I've just got to point out with the Congos quickly. It wasn't like they dismissed it because they didn't need it. They dismissed it because of racism. No joke.
The fact that
some of the intel reports.
All right.
Yeah, some of the intel reports that the US Navy are using for their fleet planning has the Congo being an inferior export copy of Tiger.
Dandalord, Hoge could barely beat a rowboat, let alone Lexington.
And
Oh,
I will
stop it.
remind you, Congos aren't inferior versions of Tiger. Arguably, they're better.
Yeah.
Arguably, they're worse.
But with these ships, can we at least agree? Just putting aside questions of doctrine for a second, I want to just hammer down a few things and get the panel's consensus before we just move forwards into the hypothetical timeline. I am going to keep it very short that would spin out. Do we all think they would get a completion to a revised US design with 14-inch guns, revised machinery, etc.? Because they're not finished when the war's ended. You don't think so?
I think they get taken, looked over, studied, and then stuck somewhere, and then at some point in the 20s or the 30s used for target practice. Like the American interwar German dreadnought was. That was used by Billy Mitchell. Okay. I think they get that treatment.
Okay. Dragon, Moe, Ruinon, what do you think? I'm trying to get a consensus here so I can basically...
I got nothing.
Go forwards.
They're white elephants. They make no sense for the fleet. But they're better than what the US could actually produce, technically.
Yeah.
Right, they're too arrogant to realize that.
Yeah. And I would point, and I would also... Sorry, go on, Moe.
There's no way Congress is giving them money for this anyway, so...
Yeah, I think honestly, I think Foxo, I hadn't actually accounted for that whole idea of them. Yeah, they get them, but they just look at them, test them, and then throw them in a salt lake somewhere for disposal later.
And then she gets bombed by Billy Mitchell to go, haha, look, air power has rendered the warship obsolete.
Yeah, I think... I honestly, I think that's the consensus. That's what happens. I think that is absolutely right. Anyone have any disagreements with that? I'm just keeping it relatively chill this time because there's very little of us and we're all just cracking. Oh, hang on, that question has come through again.
Think this is an older style ramblings.
Yeah,
greatest hits of including, not limited to, taking the piss out of fleet.
You know what? I'll let that one slide. That's funny. Hey.
We do that on new model ramblings too. So
Yeah, but it's a relatively chill catch up. It just means we can work through the questions nice and easily. Shadow Lord, for Dragon, you're put in charge of the new class fleet modernization program, thus Legends continuity only, and you are charged with designing the 8 ships in the program. Image provided with the roles and sizes. What do you do? What is changed? What is kept? Picket, gunship, light escort, fleet tender, heavy cruiser, assault carrier, star destroyer, fleet carrier. Dragon, I guess this is your show, my man. Off your crack. This is the new Republic's fleet modernization MacGuffin, ain't it?
Yes.
New Republic building a fleet?
Yeah, basically they realized their hodgepodge fleet wasn't wasn't good for an actual navy, so they did the new class modernization program. So it was meant to basically try and standardize the fleet a bit.
It was one of the few things in Legends the New Republic actually tried to get right.
How badly did they fail?
They didn't actually, funnily enough. It's just that they kept getting hit over the head with wars.
Pretty well.
It's just that they never finished it because they kept getting over the head with existential crises, and then the Vong showed up towards the end.
Oh, he's a cute little dragon. Who's a cute little dragon? Yes, you are. Oh, you're going so big.
When she says that, she's not referring to me. She's got a pet dragon on the Minecraft server.
Anyway, so go on, Dragon. If we're
probably change the Defender class assault carrier for one because it is ugly as sin.
The assault carrier. Is that the one that's basically a brick? If I'm thinking of the same thing.
This one I've placed it in text.
Yeah, I thought supposed to do.
Oh Jesus Christ!
And that's 700 meters long.
Can we replace that with like a revised Bothan assault carrier or something, please?
No, because that's also a brick.
Yes, but a brick is better than that. That thing's
Oh,
like
thank you.
Could we wedge it? Could we make a wedge? Like, could we just downsize one of the
The
Republic?
Majestic as a cruiser is not bad, but it's also weird. Like, why does the Majestic have the really large tower? I would smooth that tower down and probably enlarge the aft section
Yeah,
so that it's got more built in there.
That's what I don't understand about the Majestic. It's built on the same hull as the the actual Star Destroyer, isn't it? Like the two basically share the same.
You're thinking of the Endurance, which
Sorry.
also is. Why have you just stuck a bridge on a tower on this? This makes no sense. In fact, it was. You stuck 2 on it.
Why not?
Okay,
More bridge, more better.
That's the Majestic, and that's the Endurance. And it's a case of why have you just stuck these towers on them?
Yeah, I found an Endurance class I don't hate. I'm actually gonna put this in the Ramblings text. I found an Endurance I don't hate. Like, that's better. The bridge isn't so far out of the superstructure.
Better, but I would still want to integrate it into the hull more.
Yeah, I think I don't mind that design for the.
You could actually do an Imperial stepped up design. I think would work slightly better because it also gives you more internal hull volume to work with.
So basically,
in particular, you have created this narrow bit where you could fit so much more space in if you just widened it.
So basically, the only thing that really needs to change about the Endurance, basically, is just get rid of the honking Great Bridge, and then boom, we're all right. We're off to the races.
Well, I would still improve other aspects of it in terms.
What do you mean?
Along the lines of the one that you posted. Also, I hate the idea of that forward launch bay. To be honest.
Yeah, I think that whole
the launch bays are too exposed.
Yeah, I think plating.
At least the front one is. The side one's not the worst, but
yeah, I think
wait.
For that,
no, it's got 3 towers. I've just realised. It's got an offset one on the left-hand side.
Yeah. I think for me, that that Majestic I posted, I think if we reduce that bridge structure, if we close out the front launch bay and maybe give it like sort of a quasi Venator style ventral launch bay, like if you have to have a launch bay that goes forwards, at least have one that's under thick armor plate and is you have to come down from above to actually start smacking it, if you get what I mean, Dragon. Like if you have to have it,
that bay.
Yeah, if you have to have one, at least go back to a classic that works. Get rid of that big oval shaped bridge. Bring that in. I tell you what though, I do like the addition of that recovery bay aft. That is a great way to recover fighters. Without disrupting launch operations. I do like that. That is a very neat thing.
2 other classes I would change is the Agave class picket ship because it makes no sense.
What's your opinion on the Nebula Dragon? Never actually spoken to you about
Nebula's an excellent Star Destroyer. It's not what I consider the pinnacle of Star Destroyers. I think it is slightly overhyped, the fact that they basically, yes, 1 Nebula can take on 3 Star Destroyers. No.
Yeah, I think...
No, but...
Yeah, I think the overhyping is
take
wrong.
on 1 Star Destroyer or 2 heavy cruisers, but a lot of people say, I can take on, 3 Star Destroyers.
No, I'm going, no. The whole point of the Nebula is that it's a comfortable win over an Imperial 1. That's its whole job. Its whole job is in a one-on-one fight to comfortably defeat an Imperial 1.
No, I feel that's a problem because it is almost 600 meters shorter than an Imperial 1.
I mean, I suppose you could make up for that by saying A, it's a more modern ship, and B, it is whereas an Imperial 1, and even to a lesser extent an Imperial 2, is a area control expeditionary asset for Imperial policing, which they are. Hang on, I'm in mid-flow for just a second. For Imperial policing, the Nebula is a line of battleship. That's all it does. It doesn't really give much recourse to hangar space. It doesn't carry a troop complement. It doesn't carry a base that can be landed on a planet. And it doesn't really do anything else other than stare an Imperial 1 in the face and smack it with firepower.
Smack that ass.
And it is a more modern ship. So while I can see where Dragon's coming from with it, not being with him being uncomfortable with it being a comfortable win over an Imperial one, despite it being a smaller ship, I can just about see it, given all the aspects I listed.
As Chandlord's mentioning, the fact that the Nebula only has 6 months of endurance.
Yeah.
That means it has to rely on a much heavier supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much more defensive vessel.
But the problem is, though, also, in terms of armament, it shouldn't take on a Star Destroyer the way it does. It has 40 heavy turbo laser batteries with basically 10 per arc. Then 20 ion cannons with 5 per arc and 8 missile tubes. As well as a bunch of anti-fighter cannons and tractor beam projectors. You've then got a number of other other heavy turbo laser batteries also, once again, in a arc. The problem is, technically speaking, the fact that there's so much rear firepower is impressive. But it's the fact that it's got so much rear firepower, it's weird. Because you're actually losing firepower forward by having that much firepower aft.
Yeah, I can
Sea
see
Daughters. Why is the brain torturing Boris Johnson?
Oh, that's Gogglebox.
Spitting image. I love spitting image. It's funny. It's funny.
So, my question, doesn't the Nebula get a lot of its combat power, despite being smaller, from the fact it doesn't carry the army's worth of ground troops in it as well?
That's what I did.
So
it
still carries almost... Nope, because it still carries 1,600 troops.
Okay, now I am starting to call bullshit.
But it's not like the massive landing forces like entire bases that...
Yeah, but the mobile garrisons aren't actually that big. They are big, and I do think an Imperial Star Destroyer would do better. A more combat-oriented one would do better dropping them.
Mm.
But it's the fact that it is 600 meters shorter, lot shorter in terms of height, and not as wide. All its dimensions is significantly smaller. Yet apparently it has a 20% higher power reactor output, which apparently means it's all its guns are overcharged, which... That's not true. Even New Republic turbo lasers were deemed to actually be weaker than Imperial turbo lasers. The fan thing is that the Imperials use higher grade Tabana gas, even at the end, over Rebels. It's why Rebels use red versus Imperials using green. Is some of the explanation and fan lore, but even going beyond that. If the Nebula was closer to 1,300, I could believe it.
Mm.
Not a ship that is almost a third the size.
Yeah.
And the fact that, to quote, it mounts defenses strong enough to resist some of the Super Star Destroyer or Analog Series warships.
So, Dragon, with all
That's
this...
stuff like Bellators.
With all this said, big in it?
Yeah. Enlarging the design.
Okay, so we have big and
you enlarge the Nebula. One of my problems is, and I was mentioning this about the Argave, all of these ships are equipped with Class 1 hyperdrives, which are good. But for ships that are, say, the Argave, which is a dedicated picket ship, which is meant to screen, give them better hyperdrives. We can give them Class .05 hyperdrives, which make them some of the fastest ships out there. Especially for your picket ships, again. Alright. So, yeah, enlarge the Nebula. I would probably see about if I can get a Class .7 hyperdrive on it. If I want to actually make them a real rapid response ship. Enlarging it, give it more supplies. Give it at least a year. Yes, you should hopefully, theoretically, never need it, but it's better to have it and not need it. Plus, it means if you ever say do it... Plus, if you have the capacity for, say, 6 years... Well, not 6 years, 6 months supply, if you increase that to be higher, if you ever need to do a Mercy mission, you have supplies you can spare. You can then reuse these ships as, right, we need to send a fleet over here, quickly get what we can, right, load some of the spares into the ships. Which is what the Mon Calamari cruisers did more frequently. What was that explosion?
So that's what the US supercarriers do in Mercy missions, isn't it?
Yeah.
become massive transport haulers.
Effectively.
There's a famous picture of one of the American supercarriers where most of this air group has been taken out, and it's just full of cargo crates in the hangars.
Fact that despite it being such a
you have that image by any chance?
The fact that the Nebula is such a smaller vessel,
it's
still more expensive than an Imperial Star Destroyer to actually have. No, the Nebula is explicitly referring to others. Also, even then, a Nebula should not be able to resist firepower from a Bellator. These are ships that are at such an order of magnitude more, saying it can resist Super Star Destroyers makes no sense. Or even, I'm going to include that to mean Star Dreadnoughts. Because again, there is just that level of scale of firepower is so beyond what these should be able to deal with. Because remember, these ships overwhelm planetary shield generators with forces of fire. So a single ship resisting that's a bit weird. Yet Legends has a lot of weird things, like as Gorbian mentioned, 5 Happen Battle Dragons apparently taking down an Executor. Iron Fist versus the Monorail. Legends is better than New Disney, but only if you're very, very careful in curating it. Ideally, the best thing is actually to mix the two together, because New Disney does have some good stuff.
Thrawn's Revenge, Eat Your Heart Out.
That whole Battle Dragon thing, it sort of feels like that one time the Dutch lost a fleet to French cavalry. It's not some of that normally happens.
Right.
It would take too much to go into a proper breakdown, but that's a very, very brief overview that others can understand semi-quickly.
Right.
I didn't get bored of.
Okay. The next question is a little bit confusing in how it's worded, but I think I get the rough gist. Unless anyone else has anything else they wish to add to this.
No, nothing on the Star Wars one.
Okay. Typical gunner officer, do you think the British had already mastered military operations in urban terrain during the Cold War, unlike the US, which make the British more inept at urban combat than the US in the Gulf War and during OFI 1 at Basra? Well, here's the thing. That question, with the way it's written, double negatives itself. Because the first part implies that the British have mastered military operations in urban warfare in the Cold War, unlike the US. But the second part implies that makes them worse at urban combat?
So I'm fairly certain that you're either swapping as intended, you're either swapping British for US or inept for adept.
Yes. Either way, so here's the thing. I hate to break it to you, but the US got a lot of experience in mounted operations in urban terrain during the Vietnam War. A lot of people forget quite how much urban fighting there actually was during that conflict. The US paid for experience in urban warfare against an opponent armed with modern automatic weapons, IEDs, and rocket-propelled grenades in blood in their experiences in Vietnam. And it taught them a lot of lessons.
And they also proceeded to forget a lot of those lessons.
Well, yes. Why would we remember lessons that we paid for in blood? That seems inefficient.
But yeah, but it is also important to bear in mind that even then, a lot of these lessons had to be relearned again. But there were also new lessons that basically hadn't come up in conflict before. The sort of urban fighting that you dealt with during the Gulf War, well, not so much during the Gulf War, but in the aftermath of the Gulf War and during the War on Terror, is very much not equivalent to... It's not... It wasn't even traditional counterinsurgency. It was counter-terror counterinsurgency, which means you have to consider basically anyone a potential target, including women and children, because they could be terrorists with explosives vests on.
Insurgency.
Um,
That's by definition. You're getting it mixed up with counterinsurgency and either digital or modern counterinsurgency.
right.
The
Sorry.
game has changed massively with the introduction of stuff like cell phones. Which is what they call for Americans learn the hard way.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't think that anyone going into the Gulf War and the War on Terror was any more or less inept at military operations in urban terrain than anyone else. I don't think the US had an advantage over the British, and I don't think the British had an advantage over the US. I think both sides went in there with well-trained officers and men, but there were lessons that had to be learned, doctrine that had to be adapted, and tactics that had to be learnt for the way militaries have often had to learn tactics. By people dying before the lesson is learned, unfortunately.
Yeah. But can I do mine now?
Yep.
But there is some credence to the claim though. And it's not because of training or equipment or just supernaturally being better. One of the things Britain goes into the Iraq War, the Second Iraq War with, is a system the Americans call human terrain, or to use the colonial phrase, native terrain. And it's because of the legacy of the British Army being a colonial force. The British had a lot more experience in successfully working and operating through the locals. Which is, the Americans learned quick, but the Americans also made a lot of fuck-ups during it. And yeah, it's going into it, the Americans are trying to fight. They're not taking into account cultural differences between Americans and Iraqis, if you get what I mean.
Right.
And they're not taking into account differing cultural norms. And it's one of the reasons why in the 80s and the 90s, British Army troops and Royal Navy visiting places like visiting the Commonwealth was encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something that you can't teach, you have to learn through directing. That different people in different cultures act in different ways to the same stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
And that came to a front after Second Iraq, where you had the Americans were using tactics that would work on Americans and Europeans, not taking into account that they were dealing with a much more fundamentalist culture who, unlike Christianity at that point, still had a very, especially after the Iran-Iraq War, had a very strong idea of martyrdom.
Mm.
And you'd have to deal with the locals in a different way than you would conventionally American to American.
Yeah.
And that's where the Americans go wrong in the early part of the Iraq Wars.
I mean, they learn pretty quick, as you say, but takes them a little bit longer.
Yeah, but they cycle out troops as they get good at human terrain.
Hmm.
And so much of the issue is that you're bringing Midwestern, a lot of the time, but very Christian and actively Christian, with very Americana beliefs at this point, into the heart of Islam. There's a lot of, especially Baghdad and Mosul, what happens is cultural tension splitting and creating an us versus them mentality. The British were better at dealing with that purely through experience. They had learned the hard way in South Africa before World War One. They learned the hard way in Kenya and with the White Highlanders. They had learned the hard way in Nigeria. They had learned in India how using human terrain and doing stuff where the Americans where a lot of the conventional forces used their own guys, mixing in with the natives, the locals. For example, in India, the Sikh brigades and the Gurkhas, to sort of break apart and organize us versus their mentality. The British we still do have a lot of experience in that. And that comes from a colonial legacy. The Americans largely don't have a colonial legacy. Not in the same way the British do.
No. Has anyone else got anything they want to add? Dragon? Anything you want to add to this?
Not really.
Ruidon? Moe?
Nope.
Military operations in urban terrain is forever and always inherently extremely messy.
There's no way to get around that fact. It just is.
You especially when you can't empty the city and ensure that it's only combatants in there, it just turns into a big mess big quick. And I can't think of anybody that does it well. And it's not like an open fields terrain, open terrain where you can control everything and you can bring in a lot of other assets that can help you modify a opponent's advantage. It's okay, you can bring that A10 in for that gun run, but you're going to level an apartment block to do it. How does that move the needle on the good, not good scale? I
think
that's going to vary from person to person.
Sea Dodders put it best. You can do it clean or you can do it efficiently.
I don't even think you can do it clean. The only way to do it clean is to not do it.
I suppose, there is that. That's probably an even better way of putting it.
The problem is there's too many nooks and crannies for scared civilians to hide in. Yeah, but gunnery officer, that particular variant of the Hellfire, it's great for taking out one car, so it's great for coin. It's not great for open warfare. It's not efficient in any regards for open warfare. It's barely even effective.
Yeah, the whole thing with that is to basically enable strikes on single person high value targets and ideally totally minimize collateral damage. That is what that weapon exists for.
It's a fuck that guy in particular weapon, and
it was developed after the whole blowing up an entire wedding full of people to kill one guy incident.
And that's great if you're fighting an insurgency, but if you are in if you're in Ukraine right now or Palestine, you're not really fighting an insurgency so much anymore. Especially in Ukraine, you are fighting a conventional army. And for that, you're not trying to take out one guy or one car's worth of guys. You're trying to take out entire platoons. You're trying to take out entire an entire squad. Well, I would say that could be effective for a squad depending upon how the squad's deploying. You're taking out platoons, you're taking out companies. And for that type of weapon, isn't really effective because you'll be dispersed over such a wide area.
Let's not touch that, Bone Mill boy. I ain't touching that one with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Don't want to go anywhere near that conflict. I don't even want to mention that by name.
But just to
It's
bring
gray
it back
zone.
around the Iraq War, though, the Americans, because that's what the pitch is about, how the British entities like Basra got around a lot of urban combat was
Knight.
dealing with the locals.
Yeah, no, Knight. America is a settler colonial power. Britain was an occupational colonial power. There is a massive difference between settler colonialism and occupational colonialism. Occupational colonialism is taking over control of a region, implementing top-down administration, but not encouraging the displacement and replacement of the existing population with your own ethnic or cultural group of citizens. Yes, there was, the whole white upper class in the colonies, and yes, there were British people who did move out there, but it wasn't an actively encouraged push to displace the extant population or actively change their culture.
Yeah, well, kind of.
Are you-
It's why I
are you
brought
a-
up South
are-
Africa specifically.
Okay, wait, stop. Are you applying that descriptor to the US or the UK?
The UK, because the UK was an occupational colonialism state, whereas the US was an active settler colonial state. Wherever it occupied or colonized, it would attempt to integrate that area into the US proper, and would actively encourage the removal of ethnicities and cultures that did not conform or did not adapt to the expansion of that state, whether that's through bringing in its own populace or cultural people, or by forcing them to adopt American culture.
So you're talking about the push west. Just to check.
And the occupations of places like Hawaii, where they were basically forced to Americanize.
Yes, but the exception to that's the Philippines.
That is the only exception, yes.
So, in general, America's colonialism was stuff like the West, where it was active pushes to take Americans from the East Coast to the West Coast. As the white colonies aside, because they're based on a much older form of colonialism. That's under the English Empire, and that's a different can of worms.
Yeah, that is very much settler. Yeah, that is settler colonialism. She's right.
Yeah, but why I brought up specifically a lot of Africa and India was that
that's occupational.
There was an attempt to get poor Brits to move out to India, or to places like Kenya and Tanzania, or Egypt, or Uganda. The push was, okay, we're administrating this place. We need to send British administrators out to the area. And those administrators took their family with them. And those family sort of pulled friends over there naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't a centralized push to send the lower working class, the unwashed masses, to Africa. Unlike in the American West, where they were literally paying people to move out to Oregon, Wyoming, Ohio, sort of area. That's the difference we're talking about here.
And it's also hard to understand the zeitgeist that was Manifest Destiny. It's an almost unique mix of Christian nationalism and an almost national an almost national delusion that we can do that they could do no wrong. It's a unique thing that I don't think we've seen historically, basically because of how short a time we've seen similar things historically, but nothing on the time scale that the US did it in.
Yes, we have Han China. Han, China, and the Romans.
Yeah, no, you are right. Han, China, and the Romans. Yeah, no, sorry. She's absolutely
Because remember,
right.
the Han majority of the regions are owned historically until about 800 years ago were northern China and the Yellow River.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of South China. I think there's entire ethnic groups that are more related to Tibetans culturally than Han Chinese. Really interesting, but that's story for another time.
I mean, there's a reason why a lot of the different Chinese style like mostly originate from the south.
Yes, because that's like Cantonese is the sort of adoption of Han Chinese, isn't it?
I mean, kind of, not really. It gets really messy once you start diving deep into the actual language itself. But yeah, in essence, the primary influence of the Han Chinese sphere, it's mostly coming from the Yellow River region in essence, and anything out of that area was originally, you would probably say, not Han Chinese, but they were very much assimilated into the culture.
Yeah. But to sort of get back to the Americans and the original question, how you do colonialism massively affects how you do occupations. Because it's one of those strange things you figure out, stuff like the Velvet Protectorate, where Ottoman's actually really good at this with the Beyliks, and what are they called? The Christian Protectorates.
Yeah.
They had a special name where they were Ottoman administrated, but with stuff like administrative colonialism or extractive colonialism. They're similar, but they're different. They're very much of you enforce local laws as well. They're very much a case of local practices, except we take your taxes now. Which is what. And we do stuff like tax rebates, we set tax rates, which is how a lot of exploitative industries get into the colonies. It's complicated. But the British and arguably the European method of colonialism was twisting local laws and traditions. A lot of American colonialism was the eradication of local traditions and the replacement of them. Which kind of makes sense when you look at the occupation of Germany, but I try to actualize it. It's the same mistake the Americans make in Vietnam is they try to treat these places on the other side of the world like America. They are not America. And they piss off the locals a lot doing it. And when it comes to urban combat, the way you succeed is purely through the locals. Because quite frankly, if you have support, or at least active the people of the city like you, then the hostile force in the city, the locals know where all the rat holes are. And they will tell you. They will guide you to them. They will split out in the ranks of the population who are the combatants. That's certainly if the locals like you.
Yes, the locals do have to like you. This is...
Yeah, islets, that's it. Thank you, Channel Lord. Islets.
Yeah. I feel like we really have dived deep into this question, deeper than I thought we would. And also, thank you, Foxo, for that rather in-depth look into the way... Yeah, no, seriously. Foxo, well fucking done. But I didn't know I didn't know there was that much to the topic. I have learned things. But unless does anyone else have anything they want to add? Dragon, Moe,
No.
Ruinon as well, of course.
Yeah, I added my piece, so it's Devastator time.
Bowmill Boy, how would the historical assessment of the Devastator change if it was night tech capable? Do you want the? It doesn't. It doesn't for one key reason.
Sorry, can I just point some out?
Okay.
The Devastator in Royal Navy service was night strike capable.
Yeah, here's the thing. Whether an aircraft being night capable is basically down to a few things. Like, if you just make the aircraft itself night capable, that gets you nothing if your aircrews aren't trained for it and your carrier isn't equipped for it. And in the US's case, they aren't and are not. So unfortunately, given that the historical assessment of the Devastator comes from its US Navy service, and by making it night capable, you've not made it night operable with the USN, because they are not trained and worked up for night warfare operations when the Devastator is a frontline combatant for them, you haven't realistically changed the Devastator's assessments. I'm going to hand over to the rest of the panel.
The entire issue is quite literally, even if you get night capable and have a night capable crew and stuff like that, you're still gambling with that stupid Mark 13, man. Or 14. I don't remember which was your launch one.
Yeah, whatever.
15,
one
I think.
It was.
Yeah, so it's just sort of like, why? Why even bother?
I thought the 15 was the sub one.
Yes, 15
no, 14
was.
is sub.
So
No.
I thought 13
No,
was, yeah.
No.
I thought 13 was destroyer, 14 is submarine, 15 is aircraft.
Yes.
Either way, you get the point.
Yeah,
You
the
can
biggest
get
issue is
everything right, but until your fixes that damn torpedo, there's no point.
The biggest issue that's always going to hold all torpedo armed entities back is the Mark 6 ploder, because it doesn't explode, it doesn't implode, it just
It goes clang against the side of the hull.
Now, if you take the question as I believe it to be intended, and you give the USN a night strike doctrine and theory of operations, and also make the carriers night strike, that files into the write a book of speculative history.
Yes, you are officially into the this is beyond our ability to
because
talk about.
You are going at that point. Cool. The U.S. now has a night capable torpedo bomber. There are plenty of encounters where the U.S. probably could have used night capable torpedo craft. However, at that point, you're just throwing dice at the wall and seeing how many 4, 5s, and 6s you can get. And to speculate what that cumulative effect is going to be a miserable time.
I need to correct my previous statement. This Devastator wasn't operated by the Royal Navy. What I was thinking of was the detachment sent to places like Royal Air Station Hatson in Scotland, where they were working with an integrated into the fleet air arm. And those Devastators were equipped with the basic equipment for night flight.
Thank you, Foxo.
So they weren't carrier operating. I just wanted to clear it up because Gunnery Officer pointed it out.
On the other hand, can you imagine a U.S. Navy night strike capable fleet that during Guadalcanal?
Oh, never mind Guadalcanal, a bloody Coral Sea. That's gonna be fun.
For who?
The US.
Coral Sea's a little bit more. Considering the 2-3 day exchange, both sides were relatively clueless in terms of where each other actually were. I cannot imagine standing a strike at night during Coral Sea, because that is actually going to get a lot of planes just scuttled in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Anyone else got anything they want to add to this whole question?
Nah.
Dragon?
No, but I do have a minor quick question for Foxo. That's because it came somewhere else. Do you think trapping a Fae in a jar and draining essence away from it slowly is a good way to get your bloodline cursed?
Yes.
No.
Or it seemed like a good way for some sort of thing to occur to your family and you.
Dragon, glass has the same effect as cold iron. They can't curse you through it.
Yes, but there's got to be at least
Now,
some
if
way
that
of doing
Fae's
it, because
got
if it's draining...
friends, if that Fae's got friends, you will have a problem.
Which
but
it probably
Fae don't
does.
have friends.
Yeah, but Fae don't like it when other Fae are being attacked unless they're certain groups.
Well, they like it as long as it's not their posse that's getting attacked.
Right.
Next.
Next question. Do you think the Comet is the best allied late war tank? Do you think the M60, M26 and late variant of the 76 Sherman aren't as impactful, reliable, or powerful as the Comet? So let me go first. The Comet, as an overall fighting unit, is arguably the best allied late war tank. In terms of it... would you let me finish?
Go ahead. I'm just laughing, that's all.
In terms of overall capability, how roughly reliable it is, the gun it has, the mobility, armor protection, the Comet overall is better. However, there are certain things that
just call the Comet reliable.
There are certain
I know, right?
There are certain things that other vehicles do better. The M26 has a much more powerful gun and is more heavily protected, but it is, because of its somewhat rushed into service nature, it is a little bit less reliable than the Comet. However, the 76mm Sherman is just more reliable, has a similar punchy gun, and while its armor is slightly less effective, I would probably still want to be in a 76 Sherman over a Comet. But the Comet is technically a better vehicle than the Sherman, but I would rather be in a 76 Sherman than a Comet.
Okay, quick clarification, please. Does this question specifically rule out the Centurion?
The Centurion wasn't in World War II.
Yes, it was.
It was. The Mark I was deployed. It was in Germany.
It was part of the Allied units that went in that met the Soviets.
Did
it see combat?
There was no Germans left to shoot at, sadly.
Well, no, it did. It was a part of anti-partisan operations against werewolves.
Did you just say
it shot at Germans? It shot at the SS.
Yeah, that is indeed what she did just say.
Do I even want to know?
Right. Okay, look, can I just explain this? So the werewolves were set up by the SS in Germany, and they were, like the name suggests, it's actually a funny thing with the name, they were literal war crimes. They were people, old men, children, and women who would go into combat, wouldn't go to combat, but they'd be civilian clothes, civilian dressed, and they would act like partisans, actively shooting them at the Allied and Soviet forces, not wearing uniform, essentially like a militia that would disband back into the general population when they met resistance, significant resistance. And not sort of the Soviet-style partisans where they largely kept themselves separate from society, hiding in stuff like forests. No, these would be like, I don't know, all the women on a block in Hamburg having rifles and occasionally taking pot shots at the Allies and assassinating officers, but then going, I'm just a woman. Like, literal war crimes. And their idea behind them was the Nazi state, we're losing. Germans could be occupied, but we can defend the core long enough that with these partisans, we can make it so bloody for the Soviets and the Americans that they will pull out. Basically, try and pull a war on terror. War of terror.
This did not work.
Well, it's more of the Soviets just went, okay, kill them all. And the Americans beat them by shooting at the fanatics and literally giving chocolate to kids.
Yeah, hearts and minding the rest of them.
Because most mothers would choose their kids over the Nazi state.
Yeah. Okay. So bearing in mind, I was not aware that Centurion had been deployed to Germany prior to the end of hostilities. Since that technically does mean that it's technically served in Second World War, and yes, obviously that takes the cake as the best Allied late war tank. However, if we use vehicles that actually shot at things that weren't partisans, I would argue that technically, by definition, the absolute best Allied late war tank is Super Pershing.
That didn't shoot.
No, because Super Pershing was never there.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. Pershing was.
No, Super Pershing was there. The whole battle around Cologne.
No, Super Pershing's the up armored one, remember?
Yeah.
Super Pershing and Pershing are not the same thing.
Yeah, I know. Super Pershing with the longer
Right,
gun.
the
And
one
the,
at
and the extra
Cologne
arm.
was one of the original M26s that had the radial engines. The Super Pershings, as far as I remember, did not have the radial engines.
Yep.
There was no radio engine Pershing that was ever sent.
Super Pershing, there were battles involved with a single Super Pershing was sent.
Pershing.
No,
not Super.
There was a Super Pershing in Germany. There
was a Pershing equivalent T-15E1, yes. And it is the one you're thinking of, the one with the welded Panther armor, or just
and the longer barrel gun
onto it.
No,
yeah, that's why I said T-15E1.
Yeah,
it was there, despite everyone saying, "Don't do this, please."
And like I said, I would argue that tank is that singular tank.
It is a singular tank, yes.
That singular vehicle is technically.
I'd still put Centurion as a superior tank to it.
Not with that longer barreled 90. That longer barreled 90.
Yes, at least the 17-pounder works, is stabilized, has better ammunition.
And at least it has a working.
No. The one that was sent over is not stabilized. The Mark 1s were not stabilized.
I'm sure the Mark 1 had the stabilization system.
No, the Mark 1's fully stabilized 17-pounder.
Yeah, that's my point. Like, the Mark 1 is a stabilized 17-pounder.
The Mark 1 has the two-plane stabilization, which is why Comet doesn't even hold a candle to it, because Comet's not stabilized. Centurion Mark 1 has a two-plane stabilizer that would be reused in the Mark 3 turret for the 20-pounder. So the Mark 1's fully stable. Well, correction technically.
No,
because
from what I remember,
Mark 1s that were sent over, it was the Mark 2s, because the Mark 1s have a 20mm instead of a.
The Mark 2 got the full. Mark 2 got the full stabilization. Mark 1
and the Mark 2s were sent over.
Yeah,
no, they weren't. No, they weren't. The Mark 2s entered production in 46.
Yeah.
But... No, the Mark 3 entered in 46.
No, the Mark 2 entered in 46. Mark 3 is 48.
Is it?
Kill me.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. But the Mark
because the one that in particular,
stabilized the
6
Mark
vehicles
2.
were sent. 6 Mark 1s were sent to the 5th Royal in the Dragoon Guards of the 22nd Armored Brigade at Grubholm in Germany.
Yeah,
that is why we know that the Mark 1 did serve. Even then, I will still take a Centurion Mark 1 over any early form of T-15E1, because at least my tank works and doesn't break every bridge it tries to go across.
Okay, so I've just checked.
Hang on a minute.
I just need to correct this. The Centurion Mark 1 was stabilized. However, it was a limited speed stabilizer.
Dragon, the Centurion Mark 1 bloody weighs more than the bloody Pershing.
But it's got better ground pressure.
Yes, that doesn't help you when you're going over a bloody bridge.
It actually does.
It can help you depending upon the structure of the bridge. Some bridges it will help, some bridges it won't help. But generally speaking, having lower ground pressure is a desirable thing on the tank.
Yes, it is. I'm not denying that, but I question its utility crossing a bridge, which has to take the entire weight of the vehicle at once, regardless of how much pressure it's spread out over.
No.
Okay, no. Right, fleet.
Let Rune on, because Rune was talking first. Yeah.
So for a straight span deployable engineering bridge that only touches a foundation at the start and the finish, you are correct. However, that's not the only type of bridge you're going to come across. For something that is a multi-span bridge, this is where your ground pressure starts to matter more. Because if you have something that is on a very narrow set of archways, which is not utterly atypical for Europe, you can sometimes split that loading across multiple arches because you have the increased footprint and the tank can safely cross. So it will impact. Additionally, it makes it easier because when you're the field silence, when you're the field engineer doing the calculations for building your field expedient bridge, you can either say, I'm just going to throw numbers out here because I don't know the ground pressure of the respective tanks. If you have a Centurion, which has lower ground pressure, say, okay, I just need to build a bridge that's going to be this dimensions of road deck that can sustain 100 pounds per square foot versus, 100 pounds per square inch versus a Comet. Again, throwing numbers out of my ass here. I have to build a bridge which has to sustain 110, 120 pounds per square inch.
You don't need to say any more. I understand now because you've made it something they understand because it's the land-based equivalent of axle loading on locomotives.
Yes.
It's essential. That's maybe only 20 pounds per square inch, 10 or 20 pounds per square inch. But when you're talking about a bridge structure, that can be a major change in how that structure is engineered.
Yeah.
Consider these things are crossing in columns. They're not crossing one at a time on especially the large bridges.
Yeah. I think I will. What I'll do is I'll say if you can get a Centurion, Centurion is, without a doubt the best air tank of the late war. But if we're talking about tanks that were very widespread, I'd say you can't go wrong with a 76 Sherman. Or a Sherman Firefly.
Like being deaf.
Well, yeah, okay. The Firefly does come with that whole you are a priority target bit, but...
that wasn't what I was referencing.
That's not what she said, but...
Yeah, but she said, would you like to be dead?
No, she said, would you like to be deaf?
Oh, I heard a D, not an F.
So, if you're not aware, the Firefly had an endemic problem because how small the turret was that post-war they found out it had caused significant hearing damage to its crews.
So maybe not the Firefly then.
Because the gun they put in the Firefly has the same breach as the open what's it called? Gun shielded
17-pounder?
Towed anti-tank gun. Towed 17-pounder. As you can see with the American 3-inch, and they have to use it on stuff like M36, you have to do a lot of muffling to that breach inside a tank. That takes up space.
Hang on. 3-inch M36. Do you mean the 90mm?
No,
I think she meant the M10.
I mean, no, not the M10. I meant the American attempts at the M6, not M36, M6.
Ah, yeah, sorry, there you go. For a second, yeah, you're right. Carry on, go on.
And you have to do... It's done through strange ways in the Cold War, but at this point in time, you have to muffle the gun. And the Firefly 17-pounder wasn't muffled.
So it's a loud bugger.
It's a lot louder than an equivalent tank gun, and that's also not taken into account the blast effect of the gun because it's a very high pressure gun.
Did the speaking on this topic quickly, just to like sort of round off, did the Americans manage to muffle their 76 Shermans?
Yes.
Okay.
It's one of the big things the 76 has over the 17-pounder.
In that case, then
it's also much lower pressured as well. So
yeah it's much lower.
Give me a 76 Sherman for the end of for the late part of World War II. Then, if I'm gonna have a tank at all,
I'd still take a Cromwell.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick if you want. Yeah, Cromwell has its advantages as well. I'm not gonna lie. But my personal preference is I'd like the extra punch of the 76.
And I've got to point out that really don't about this question with the Comet. So you're aware that the Comet's basically a fat Cromwell, right?
Yes.
Up armored.
Yes.
It's got the same suspension as the Cromwell.
Mm-hmm. It has no
same
internal
engine
space
as a Cromwell. It's got the same gearbox. It's got the high. It's got the auto track tensioning system. It's got the It's got the plate. Face it, the Cromwells in the later versions had side skirts. Because the Cromwell going at full chat, if it tried to turn, would rip its tracks off. Because the track would try and go under the tank and it would try and twist itself off the bearings, right? The drive wheels. What the British did was they installed a plate inside that upper side skirt that on the later models and the ones that took into the Korea, when if it was going high, tried to turn at high speeds, the track would make a horrible noise as it ran along that plate. But the track would stay on. It would damage the track, yes, but the track would stay on the drive wheels. Comet doesn't have that. Because the British think, oh, it's heavier, and it's got the same engine as the Cromwell. It doesn't need it, it's not as fast. But they failed to take into account that the Cromwell was restricted and had a very, very good power-to-weight ratio, and its limit was the gearing and the drivetrain. The improved drivetrain on the Comet, in a straight line, or if you're revving it to its max, can still do that performance. They just didn't put in the field safeties the Cromwell had. And the British Army didn't use the Comet enough for this to become an actual issue. They realised this and they went back to Cromwell for the Charioteer, which was a mistake of a tank destroyer. So that happens. Should have just built fucking Conway.
Technically not a tank destroyer, the Charioteer.
The British Army defined it. That's a question of pedantic, because the British Army defined it as a tank destroyer.
Yeah, after they realized how stupid an idea it was.
But by British Army definitions, it has a coaxial machine gun.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's the tank.
Yes.
Exactly.
It technically is a tank, if you want to use the brand. It's a very poorly armoured, horrifically bad tank, but it is technically still a tank.
It is just a way for the British Army to get as many 20-pounders into its army as it can.
Yes, because the TOW 20-pounder fails spectacularly. Because it's got a worse flash on it than the 17-pounder, who was already blinding gun crews.
Yeah.
It's not a particularly small gun either, so yeah. No.
Yeah.
More muzzle breach.
So the Irish, they found this out the hard way because we operated Churchills and Comets quite far into the Cold War.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm explaining. What they found with the Comet was it had a good enough power rate that it could hit Cromwell speeds off and on road. However, the suspension was overloaded and would rip its tracks off if you tried to turn at high speed. Oh, and if you hit a speed bump, because a couple of them got totaled this way before they created a little side road for them to go around. But there is a notorious local speed bump in County Cork. This speed bump has a higher kill count on tanks than some armies do. Because it caused the suspension on several Comets, a Churchill, and a couple of armoured cars to bottom out so hard. In the Churchill's case, it bent the hull floor.
Damn it, Jimmy, you had one job. Don't break the tank.
Which ripped apart the suspension. Because Ireland, and we didn't have good roads. We don't have good roads now, but that's for a different time.
Yeah. Right.
And the Comet has the faults of all the faults of the Cromwell, without any of the developmental fixes that made the Cromwell one of the best tanks in the world by the late war.
Alrighty then, folks.
And they also refused to give it the supercharger.
Alrighty then, folks.
Because remember,
Foxo?
Royal Armories. No, this is cool.
I know that
Cromwell
is your special
with
interest,
a supercharged Merlin engine.
I'm gonna have to do a second fucking catch up tomorrow.
A 950 horsepower engine in a glorified Cromwell.
All right. Moving on.
It did 76 mile an hour in testing.
I will mute you at this point, Foxo.
Bruno, just imagine it. A Cromwell doing 76 mile an hour.
Anyway, Bowmill Boy asks, to what extent did the influence of the Dutch finance system after the Glorious Revolution contribute to Britain's victory in the 7 Years' War? I have no idea, and you would have to get some very anal economists to dig that information out. I don't
You
think...
should study the Dutch finance system.
I don't think that's something that anyone here on the panel is really equipped to deal with that.
Yeah, that's what you call niche history.
Yeah. So moving swiftly past that one, Chandler Lord. How practical in sense of obtainability and combat capacity are the World of Warship Spanish cruisers from Tier 7 onwards? So looking through them, so Asturias, fine. That's literally just a embiggened Spanish. That's just an embiggened Italian 8-inch cruiser. And in fact, it's a real design that the Spanish were offered, so nothing wrong with that. Catalonia. She is again an embiggened Spanish cruiser, but she does use triple turrets that I don't know the Italians had any plans for triple 8-inch. But it's not completely outside the realms of possibility. That this ship could exist. Although its secondary battery is just wrong. The German twin 5-inch dual purpose mount, no, that's just not. The Italians have their own 4.7-inch guns that they use for dual purpose guns in open shielded mounts. There's no way they would use, and they also have their own domestic light and medium AA guns as well. There's no reason that they would have anything outside of that on these ships, so that's one thing to bear in mind. But apart from that, Catalonia is fine. So yeah, Asturias is fine. Catalonia is fine for the most part, apart from the things previously listed. Andalusia is where it starts to get interesting. Because with her, you've got you've got the German AA battery and secondary battery, which again, that's just not what the Spanish would go with. They have, again, as I've said, they have their own dual-purpose guns and their own light and medium AA they build in-house. They don't need to bring in from abroad. And the guns as well, 234mm guns. I don't know where they're getting these guns from.
That's simple, they're British.
Yeah, but the problem you've got with that is there's no
they are the design for the British triple 9.2-inch turret.
Yes, I'm aware of. Yeah, I'm aware of that. The thing is that there's no reason that these ships would carry these guns. The British relationship with Spain was strained after the Civil War, and if you want my honest answer, there is actually a better option if you want an armament for these large cruisers that massively reduces their cost, and if you are Spain operating on a budget, they would be very likely to take. They have the salvaged 12-inch guns from the Hispanias.
No, you're not fitting them on a ship of this size.
No, you could. You could fit.
Aren't those really short 12-inch guns as well?
No, not at all. The Hispania's 12-inch guns are at least 45, possibly 50 caliber guns, I believe.
That's short by this point.
Not really. 50
Also,
caliber...
from the actual design study, they were looking at using British 234s.
Yeah, but I would question how they would get them.
Well, Spain at the time was looking at Britain to buy them, so
I would question whether or not I question whether that sale would go through.
I mean, they weren't talking to the British government, though. They were talking to Vickers, weren't they, Dragon?
Yeah, they're talking to the companies that the government couldn't just say, no, you're not allowed to do this.
I mean, that as long as it happens prior to the nationalisation of SECN, then yes, they probably still have the clout to do that, since obviously Vickers owns a controlling stake in SECN, so that could be one way you'd get these ships. But once that nationalisation takes place, that kind of buries that.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Like, because
how is it? Doesn't bury it.
There'd be upmarked, but Vickers was willing to sell to anyone.
There's no, Fox. I don't think you quite understand. By the nationalists nationalising SECN, you've basically removed the Vickers and Armstrong's interests in Spain, because they have lost they've lost the in that they had into the Spanish market by having the controlling stake in SECN, and that's a lot of money and value that's now gone down the drain that they're not getting back. At that point, that is such a souring that I doubt that at least for a 5-year period, possibly a 10-year period, Vickers and Armstrong would want anything to do with the new Spanish government.
They were historically they were willing to play ball. They were just going to
price up.
Yeah, they would have been jacked the price up, because basically Spain, from what I'm reading, was getting mates rates essentially in return for owning that stake and de facto production monopoly in
Spanish warship construction.
Spain,
yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but losing that would have pissed them off. But they were still willing to pay ball. It was just at a premium.
If you're now going to pay, you are going to pay rates more excessive than what others will pay now. But if you're still willing to pay these massive rates, we will sell to you because that's just good business.
And
Yeah,
For
that wouldn't be
for example, this is the same company that was willing to sell weapons to Pakistan and India after their bloody independence conflict, where India and Pakistan nationalized those branches of Vickers.
And also, too, keep in mind that it's like, oh, cool. So you mean we can recoup some of our wasted investment in your nation? Awesome.
I suppose.
Yeah.
And of course, if this project,
Or-
and of course, if this project begins before that takes place, the nationalization might not even happen.
Or it might be a case of nationalize that shit. If you return the stuff you've nationalized, we'll give you a discount on these guns.
Yeah, it's again, these are all
Because did that
possibilities.
several times.
Yeah.
So there was a plan to use the Spaniard guns, but not on this ship. It would be in the enlarged variant of this, where you're pushing 20,000 tons.
Yeah.
That's basically a Spanish Azuma, isn't it?
Not even no, it's not even that. It's more like a downscaled O class.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there were also some napkin designs from what there were also some napkin designs from what I'm aware for a ship that tried to use all 8 guns in 4 twin turrets. But that really didn't get off the ground because it was basically too big for the yards to build. So finally we come to Castella. And we have officially entered what are these guns, why do they exist land.
Italy.
So first of all, again, with the secondary battery, how many times did I say this? The Italians have their own 4.7-inch gun. So not Italians, sorry, the Spanish have their own 4.7-inch domestic dual-purpose mount. And they have their own domestic heavy machine gun, domestic autocannon and light autocannon. They don't need imports from Germany or Italy for that. Now, in regards to these 250 4mm guns, these are okay. First of all,
10-inch.
First of all, using 10-inch guns. 10-inch guns are bad. How many times must I say this? You don't have the rate of fire of a 9-inch gun. You don't have the hitting power of an 11-inch gun. Bad choice.
Aren't these the Italian 10-inch guns?
It doesn't matter.
These are the Italian 10-inch 60 calibers that were designed for a Italian heavy cruiser. Because, as you might guess, this is an Italian ship. This is an Italian design, effectively sold to them with slight modifications.
Yeah, but again,
and the Italians were able to get the 10-inch gun to
no. 10-inch guns are bad. It doesn't matter how you work them. They are bad. They are a bad choice compared to contemporary.
With the semi-auto loading, they managed to get them equivalent to early 8-inch rate of fire.
Then why not go for an even faster rate of fire with 8 or 9-inch guns, or go for a heavier 11-inch gun? Again, my point still stands.
Again, Fleet, you're looking at it from a purely objective stats perspective, and you're correct in your assessment. The problem is, these are going to be, especially for Spain at the time, these are going to be status symbols.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the politicians are now getting involved, and the image is now getting involved, and now you can go to the Congress of Nations and say, oh yes, well, our heavy cruisers have auto-loading 10-inch guns, while yours only have 8-inch guns.
While I understand what you're saying, my answer to that would be to turn around and say, well, we are now at the scale where I would say, why add to the increase? Why not shave cost off these ships and get even more bragging rights and carry 6 12-inch guns instead? You have the turrets and the mounts for them.
Because they want the modern gun, and then they're gonna have to develop a modern auto-loading 12-inch gun. And now they're
I'm specific.
No, their plan. What? No, their plan. Right. Go on, Ronan.
To get anything resembling a equivalent or vaguely equivalent rate of fire to a semi-auto loading 10 or a full auto loading 8, they're going to have to develop an auto loader for a modern 12-inch gun.
Who said anything?
Because if the guns are super low caliber or have low muzzle velocity or a low rate of fire, people are just going to go, look at my shiny Iowa. Look at my shiny Vanguard that have larger guns.
Alaska.
Yeah, look at my shiny Alaska.
Oh my
the
God,
Alaskas are another thing that these things would be automatically compared to with their 10-inch, with a 12-inch gun. A 10-inch gun, you can sort of pretend the Alaskas don't exist to a point because you can still call it a cruiser because it's been so long since 10-inch was on anything that was classed as a battleship.
No.
And it's also you got to remember that looking at it, the Hispania's 12-inch, while they're not too bad barrel length, they are low pressure.
They are World War I guns.
And the press will be happy to point that out if you attempt to jiggle your apparatus around on the world stage and lampoon you for it.
Remember, these are being made by a fascist government.
Yes.
But they are also being made by an incredibly, but provably so throughout history, an incredibly pragmatic nationalist government, fascist government. Well, quasi-fascist. The Spanish aren't. Francoism isn't technically fascism.
It's much more related to Italian fascism than Nazism. It's still fascism.
But either way, this was an incredibly pragmatic state. And whilst I completely understand what Ruinon is saying, and I can appreciate why she thinks that, I fundamentally disagree. If you are investing in a ship of this size, unfortunately, as nationalist Spain, you're going to have to try and save costs wherever you can. And whilst I understand that it is one thing to be, lampoon on the world stage, and I get that, and there will be comparisons to the Alaskas, and I get that as well. I would point out that the cost savings you gain would be significant by using the existing guns and turrets you have. They are still more than capable of hitting heavy cruisers over the face with a sledgehammer comfortably, especially if you increase the elevation of those guns, which you could do. And whilst, yes, people go, oh, they're not as good as the Alaskas, oh, they're not as good as X and Y, it's still an imposing symbol of Spanish power if it rocks up in a port somewhere. It's not exactly something you don't go, oh, that's not very impressive.
Wait, no, I've just checked. You are not firing these guns. They should not be. You are not putting these guns in a modern warship.
If the Spanish, when they build these ships, or a ship in this period of this nature, want to go with what is, by the standards of the time, still considered to be battleship to battle cruiser caliber guns, it would make more sense for them to work with anybody else who is decommissioning their 14-inch span ships at this point in time, because this ship's what, 50s, 60s era is when they're hypothesizing this ship to be built?
No, you're looking more along the lines of 20s, 30s.
They won't. Oh.
Hang on. So
the design is a super Washington Treaty cruiser.
Wait, so this ship is a...
Castilla, as shown, is what she would look like in the 40s.
Well, in that case, then that really does change everything. In that case, then, yeah, absolutely. Bring the Hispanias out of service and have these ships replace them as the backline of the Spanish Navy, as its heaviest fleet units. Yeah, absolutely.
You now have... No, you don't.
If they're treaty compliant, then they have to be capped at 8.1.
They're not.
And these aren't treaty compliant.
They're not going to be. Spain's not party to the treaties.
So
Okay, then.
Well, if you build something like that, you're about to.
Whoa! Nice talking, Tex. If you're going to claim that
found it.
Spain is is a very pragmatic dictatorship, then they are not going to build anything bigger than 8.1. Because as soon as they build something bigger than 8.1, the Brits and the French are going to squawk bloody murder and claim escalator clause. Especially if Spain has gone.
Give me a second. This is useful information to tell you. So, the initial designs start work in 20s. It's the final design they reach upon is for 1940.
Okay. So at that point, if they finalize the design in 40, then you get more leeway to go 12-inch. But my question is, would they even finalize the design at with 12s in the run up to that, or would they jump it to 12s once the treaty system has finally officially collapsed?
Yeah.
It's worse. Right. Okay, can I just point something out?
I
Yes,
do have.
I'm going to point out since Fleet brought up the 12-inch guns. Fleet, the Hispanias are using the Vickers H 12-inch 56 caliber guns, right?
Uh-huh.
That's not a bad gun. That's a 50 caliber gun.
Okay, go on.
They're using partial cordite back charges.
Mm-hmm.
Back charges with propellant composition that pre-dreadnoughts used.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In bag charges.
Uh-huh.
And these guns have been significantly modified to use these charges
Mm-hmm.
by Vickers.
Uh-huh. Yep.
You are not putting these guns on modern ships and modern turrets.
Well, no, you don't. No, Fox.
You're not putting these turrets on anything.
Why not? You've not given me a reason why not.
Because they're really fucking unsafe.
And that stopped militaries when?
A lot of occasions, actually.
Right, Fleet. You know the memes about British battle cruisers
Yes.
in Jutland?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The British moved away from this powder because it was too volatile.
Okay. Yep. I'm hearing all this.
This is the same British that used high yield cordite to replace this because high yield cordite was safer and wouldn't detonate from shock.
Okay. Yeah, I am. I'm hearing all of this. I do have one counterpoint though.
You are not taking these guns anywhere near a modern ship. Because you're begging for them to the barbettes to detonate. And these guns were built in 1906.
Okay. Again, I'm hearing
By
all
this point, they're 40 years old.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing all this, and I'm understanding it. But the Hispanias had exceptionally long service lives with no accidents in terms of powder handling or detonation.
Because they hardly ever fired the guns. When did the Hispanias actually get hit by shell fire of significant caliber?
I don't think they ever did.
They never did. They mainly did shell bombardment. They weren't hit. Vickers, from what I'm reading, didn't want to sell these guns to Spain because of safety concerns. Vickers, in 1906, went, "These are dangerous. We don't want to sell these to you."
And additionally, I would point out that the navies all around the world spent significant fractions of their budget to update and modernize vessels off of progressively less stable propellants and explosives to reduce the risk of catastrophic munitions failure. There's generally been a lot of money poured into R&D for more stable propellants, more stable explosives. And on top of that, when you are building these ships in quotation marks 1940, you now have access to mature propellant and explosive technologies that are far more stable than what you had in the 19 teens. I just bought tethers.
Yes. So you're looking at modern guns that fire tube powder, that are safe and are in casings, versus unstable bag charges that you can't safely automate a lot of the loading for.
Right. Okay. All right. I will bow to pressure. All right. Okay. All right. I hear you.
If they're using an impact sensitive propellant on these guns,
Boxo's made her point. Please don't hammer it in anymore.
There is no way in hell they are automating these with 1930s automation technology.
Well, I wasn't planning on having them be more automated than they already were. I was literally going to take. I was literally going to take. My plan was literally.
I'm sorry.
My plan
get
was.
A load of this.
My plan was.
Can I have a heavy cruiser that had a lower rate of fire than 16-inch armed battleships?
All right, you chuckle fucks, laugh it up. Right.
Because even the Nelsons are assisted loading.
Yes. Anyway.
Don't mind the fast battleships.
Right, you've hammered the point home. Can we move on, please?
Well, then move on.
Yes, let's move on.
Okay. Try and work through to Slayer's question, and then I'm going to call it for today and carry on tomorrow, because it's been 3 hours. And I probably do want to do other things this evening.
You've got Hoy.
Yes.
We've technically got D&D Fox, but I'm not sure where Tanax has disappeared to.
So Gorbian asks, I asked the doctor this a while back, and he told me to bring it to you, Fleet. This is why we have to do a second one tomorrow. And he told me to bring it to you, Fleet. How many people need to fall out of a window to prevent France from going down the Je ne Cole? Can you remove just one? No. Basically, France is uniquely vulnerable to Je ne Cole as a result of the way it goes through the 19th century. The aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars, the aftermath of things like the various revolutions, the idea that replacing the old with the new is not only vital, but also the best way to increase productivity and efficiency of the nation and everything within it. In order to basically preserve the idea that the battle fleet is something French, that having a battle fleet stronger than basically anyone in the world apart from Great Britain, and trying to at least maintain within shouting distance of Great Britain, is something not only vital to the French state, but something that must not ever be changed or countermanded, basically requires you to shoot everybody who dares to come up with an idea contrary to it.
Okay, come here.
Where did all our God forged pearls?
Which is a lot of people, however.
You can do it. If you continually hammer this idea over the head and stop it every time it appears, you can prevent the Je ne Cole from rising in France. It is possible. But it's going to take a lot of work. You're going to have to keep working at it from almost as early as 1820. Because that's when the beginnings of that idea begin to ferment. Right. So, final question for this evening.
I just want to add in.
Go on.
Can't you prevent Je ne Cole based stopping the French going full retard with their wars with Germany.
No, not really.
Sort of let France actually recover economically so they can viably sustain a actual battle fleet.
Bear in mind, Ginicol's big birth was in the 1820s with the arrival of the shell gun and the steam engine. But it does take off after... bear in mind, everyone does forget that prior to the Franco-Prussian War of 1871, the French, the position that the Marine Nationale was in compared to the Royal Navy, is the position that every other navy on the planet was in compared to the Marine Nationale. That's how powerful the Marine Nationale was in comparison to everyone else. Now, the problem you do have is that the German unification is coming one way or another, and that is going to lead to war between France and Germany, and the Germans are basically guaranteed to win that war. Yeah, unfortunately.
You're not beating the Chinese needle rifle.
And you're not beating their improved systems of mobilization, their better understanding of how railways work, the fact they have dynamite instead of gunpowder as the demolition charges, etc., etc. Like the French fleet,
they've got modernized field artillery.
Yeah, the fact that
it's almost like you can't beat a military with a state.
Yeah. Now, what you can do is you can, instead of having the French fleet sink into depression post-Franco-Prussian War, you could instead have them recognize what went well and what didn't go well, aka we need a corps of trained sailors. We can't run the Navy like it's the 1820s anymore. We need a dedicated corps of engineers, officers training to be engineers, midshipmen training to be engineers. That needs to be something we train for. We need to accept that we need to look at our results and go, yes, actually, despite everything, the Germans did not successfully break the blockade we imposed. We can rank that as a success. That's not something to be discouraged by. We did successfully impose a blockade. That's not something that they can take away from us. And you basically need to go, and we are still, despite everything, within shouting distance of Great Britain. And we can retain that. The challenge is going to be, of course, fighting with the army after they're done screaming at everything else, and fighting the new Republican government, which is also fighting itself. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the Navy did. The Franco-Prussian War made it so that all the attention gets turned into the army.
Yep. Slayer.
So,
does anyone else have anything about this one they want to add?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea, so I'm deferring to
Foxel.
people who know more than I do.
It's you probably get rid of a lot of the push for the what's it called, Nicole? Pure by getting rid of a lot of the questionable competency he does in the Marine Nationale, because looking over that Navy, just in general, they wasted a fucking lot.
Mm-hmm. They did.
And it's stuff like, yes, we're going to be late to the adoption of twin and triple expansion engines.
And again, a lot of that was down to Nicole as well, because they weren't building capital ships that required them.
Yeah, but even then, even if you look at their stuff like ocean liners, and if you can stop the Prussians beating the shit out of them repeatedly, or honestly just secure the Benelux actually, enforce the Treaty of London, but that's a different issue. To save the Marine National, you have to stop the stagnation of metropolitan France.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to stop the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah.
Which means throw Napoleon out the window.
Goodbye, dipshit.
Because metropolitan France gets... Okay, so for those that don't know, metropolitan France in the Napoleonic Wars had a larger population than Russia. Pre-Napoleon, France was the most populated part, especially the northern French plain, of Europe. The devastation of the Napoleonic Wars, especially the later ones, when the French weren't digging to the bone, they were actively turning their bone marrow and scraping the barrel for supply and men. Did demographic damage to France akin to what the Wehrmacht did in Russia and the Soviet Union. And that's why France falls behind economy. It's why they can't even contest the British after that.
Mm-hmm.
If metropolitan France is less devastated and doesn't have the dead demographics devastated, the French economy and French industry is more robust.
Archdornius, we don't need just random politics in the chat. I think.
They probably would
Do I need to
have.
smite someone?
Probably.
Yes, I need to smite someone.
And they would have had the money and probably the will, if it hadn't been entirely crushed by the Royal Navy, to at least try to contest the Royal Navy locally. But it was partly their... I suppose the best word is prestige of the Royal Navy. That made the French go, we can't even fucking fight it, to be honest, even locally.
When actually they were actually underselling themselves in quite a big way. The French didn't quite understand that they actually had reached a point where they achieved something that the Germans didn't achieve. They had actually gotten their fleet within shouting distance. Actual proper shouting distance by the 1870s, and they didn't even realise it.
Especially in the Napoleonic Wars, in their aftermath, they take... French industry could materially match the Royal Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Where they failed was institutionally.
Yeah.
What makes the Royal Navy so devastating is professional admiralty and professionalization before everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
The French had the raw material to contest with the Royal Navy's raw material. They're just much less efficient with it. They make the assumption that France never had the material to match the Royal Navy, but on an institutional level they were equivalent. It's a case of, to justify itself, the Marine Nationale overglazes the Royal Navy and its own officers and blame their material situation when it was the other way around.
Yeah.
So get rid of that idea. You keep the idea of contesting the Royal Navy. You can't contest the Royal Navy with Je ne Cole.
No, exactly. And I mean, yeah. Right. Okay. Anyone else got anything they want to add?
Mm-mm.
French politics, not my cup of tea.
Don't think it's anyone's. I only look at the naval side of it. Every time I try and look at the politics, I get the urge to build a time machine and go back and strangle some people.
Only some.
Yes, only some. Slayer asks, what if Japan had the material, industrial ability, and financial capability to avoid the 8-8 program back when it was originally designed, and maintain the capability at least until the Great Depression? How would this shape things up in the naval world, and especially at the naval treaties? Would they get a higher standing and be closer to parity with Britain and America? Quite frankly, if they have that ability, they get parity, for the simple fact that you've given them the ability to walk away from the treaties. And since we have certain different parties in that negotiation reading each other's cables, the US and Britain will know that the Japanese have the capability to walk away. And if the Japanese have the ability to walk away, they at least get 554, if not 555. Because if they have the ability to walk away, then they can walk away and build ships that aren't tied to the treaties. Whereas if you keep them in the treaties, they're at least building ships that are within the limits of the treaties. Now, it will probably be a radically different treaty as well, because the Japanese will have the ability to build more new vessels than anyone else, since they will probably be building up to that limit. So you'll probably have early build options for the UK and the US for 35,000-ton capital ships. Now, whether or not that means that the French and whether or not that moves the needle on the French being higher up, in fact, it probably does. The French will probably get the 3. The French it'll probably be 553 1.75. Even if the French can't afford to build to that, there's basically no reason for the British or Americans to deny it to them at this point.
I'm sorry. I don't see a universe in which you're going to get Congress to sign off on a treaty that
Japan isn't a part of.
Puts Japan on their equal. I think they'll get their full 553, their 60% ratio.
I'd say they might even be able to argue up to 554.
You're forgetting one thing. This is Wilsonian America.
I'm aware it's Wilsonian America. The closest the America has come to being run by the KKK.
Sadly, no, but
I think a more logical number would probably be 664.
664. Maybe you could just get.
You could maybe squeeze that out.
Yeah, I think that's what you're gonna say.
And also, too, for one big reason, Japan does not have geostrategic interests in, realistically, more than one ocean. The U.S. does. Britain does. Britain has geostrategic interests on damn near every shore.
Yeah.
Japan doesn't.
Yeah.
So if Japan says we want parity with the two biggest dogs in the room, then they get no treaty and they still get buried by UK and US output.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I think.
Yeah, and if they do go for a treaty, they're not getting anything near parity because the Americans won't take that. Because I know this goes into modern politics slightly, but the guy the Americans sent as their primary negotiator that signs the treaty has interesting ideas on race, shall we say.
Yeah, this is
the Japanese place in the racial hierarchy.
The problem we've got,
and he almost scuttles the IRL treaty with this racism.
See, here's the thing.
Japan wants to be equal to America.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think Foxo's hitting on the nail. Has a hammer over the nail here, and I think it does basically bring it home. If Japan has the ability to basically comfortably afford and build the 8-8 program, and they don't get something close to that program, in the treaties, they have the capability to and will just walk.
Which 8A program are we talking about?
The full 8.8
Division
program.
There's two.
Back so 8.8 program back when it was originally designed. What was the original form of the 8.8 program? And apparently
The 1910 one.
And apparently they're supposed to be able to maintain it as well, as ship sizes increase.
So that's the issue. Are we talking about the 1910 one, or are we talking about the 1920 plan?
Slayer is in this thing, I think. So
Yeah, I know. It needs to specify, honestly.
yeah, which 8.8 program do you mean, Slayer? Hang on, let me ping. Let me ping the man.
I say.
Because the thing is, if when he say original 8A program, as in the original 1910 program, the Japanese basically got that done, except Washington told them you're not allowed to build anything over 35,000 tons and 16-inch guns. They limit the amount of 16-inch gun combatants allowed per navy. That's the only reason why 8A didn't carry over, because they signed the treaty.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about the 1920s 8.8 plan, that's a different story, because that is based around from the Nagatos.
Yeah,
and the entire plan is to encompass the 4 Amagis, the 2 Tosas, and the additional K-13s and whatever battle cruisers they're cooking up.
So, but if we
post Amagi.
But okay, let's. So I think I have a way to square the circle at least before we get clarification. If we assume that when Slayer says an 8.8 program, he means a program to have 8 battleships and 8 battle cruisers, because despite obviously the revision being between the different sizes of ships, that is still what the 8.8 program means, regardless of what ships are the starting point or the end point. That's still the 8.8 program, whether it's the 1920 or the 1910 program.
Yeah, but there's different implications, right?
Not really. It's still a plan to have 8 battleships and 8 battle cruisers, regardless of...
No. Japan is more than fully capable of sustaining the 1910 plan.
It's the 1920s ones they're not.
And I'm going to point out here that if you do have Japan going hell for leather on either 8.8 plan, that is going to be factored into the build timelines and specifications of the US and UK navies. You will probably see at least 1 or 2 Lexingtons get launched.
Yes.
I
that's
don't
for
know
sure.
if we'll see them get commissioned but by the time the treaties hit, but you will probably see them get launched, especially if Japan is trying to become the most, muscular entity in its area.
Yeah. Well, in that case, then, given what's just been said, given that they could support one of these plans and not support the other one, and the whole thing was about them now being able to support a plan, therefore that kind of narrows it down, doesn't it? Since the question is changing it to be able to support a plan, and only one of these plans could not be supported, that kind of, to me, basically says it has to be the 1920s plan.
Which pretty much throws out the entirety of the Washington Naval Treaty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you could still get a Washington Naval Treaty, but it's going to look very, very different.
I doubt it.
Especially as the big 3 are going to have significantly powerful capital assets in the water at a minimum. You might see more admirals in the water, because the admirals will kind of always.
No.
Say again?
You won't.
No, the admirals are cancelled and the G3s have taken their place.
You might see them as carriers.
You will see an admiral-shaped ship to fit in an admiral-shaped hull in the water and commissioned.
It's called Hood.
No.
Yes, I'm just
okay. I need
It's
to
questionable.
I need to calculate. The admirals, their orders were cancelled, but they weren't being broken up because the British had ideas for building them to another revised design.
Right.
One of the Ks, if the treaty didn't go through.
Okay. Fair enough.
And it's why you see the three branches of development: the conventional fully armored battle cruisers, the G3s, basically fast battleships, and the what are they called? Dragon, the full 18-inch armed dreadnoughts.
You mean the N3s?
Yes.
The N3s were the battleships of the G3 equivalent, yeah.
Yeah. And given what the original South Dakotas are, you'd probably see all three being made.
Yeah. Fair enough. I do have a thing though that I've literally been thinking about while we've been talking. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, a lot of the rise of militarism in Japan was due to the way in which the economy was strained, and a desire. Well, obviously, one of the ways in which they were trying to fix that was basically, let's go and take what we need off our various weaker neighbors and bully up on China. Now, if we have a Japan that is materially, industrially, and financially able to build something like the 8-8 program, and therefore able to defend itself and its interests that way, might that take enough wind out of the militarists, in particular the army militarists, to avoid the fall of Japanese democracy? And at that point, might that not lead to a no?
No.
Right, Flake.
Just because you have enough right now doesn't mean you want more.
And you've got to remember that Japan's reunification in the Meiji Restoration rhymes a lot with German unification, in which a significant part of it is built on militarism.
Yeah, I know.
Stuff like the creation of the Imperial Army they stir proto-nationalism into getting rid of local armies into one aggressive pushing out. So basically they use outside pressure to be the compressive force to ensure Japan stays unified, right?
Basically,
like Bismarck did with Germany.
If you don't give an excuse to the samurai, which is now the officers class, they're going to start doing things to your internal politics instead of whatever they do to the outside world.
So basically, you basically have to point them at China and say, "Go ham."
Yeah. Now,
somewhere.
All that being said, if Japan is given a fair shake at the treaties and does not feel quite so cornered as a result of them, that could have an impact on how Japan views foreign diplomacy.
And also, it has the fleet to back it up now as well. It can...
Yes. So it will have knock-on effects, but you're rapidly starting to enter speculative fiction.
Oh, never mind. Slayer has completely torpedoed the whole thing.
Also, I could just point to about Japanese outside pressure, right, Flake?
Yeah.
Based under the Ashikaga and the various shogunates and emperors, Japan, when it's fully unified and isn't in one of its massive isolationist phase, one of the first things they do after centralizing is pick a fight with Korea.
Yeah, I know. Slayer, you do realize you have...
And this... Japan has won the fight with Korea. Who else in the neighborhood do they pick fights with?
China. Yeah, okay. I'm just going to say, Slayer, you've torpedoed your own question. By basically saying that, you've torpedoed your own question. Because Japan could afford and did afford the first 8-8 program. Comfortably.
Anyway, I'm just going to have to dip now. So
that's fair enough.
Nice chatting.
Yeah.
Slayer. The only way this question changes history is the second 8-8 program being the one you mean. If you mean the first one, then they did it.
Well, no, if you're saying if they completed the first 8-8 and then go into the Washington Naval Treaty, that's a different story. Because that's just changing up how the Washington Naval Treaty has to, go. Out of the sheer fact that Japan has more ships than they should have. But if you're keeping the historical build time, the first 8-8 plan was not complete when Washington occurs. But the thing is, Japan's more than capable of maintaining the first 8-8 fleet. That's the issue.
Makes sense.
And if you still get a formal Washington Naval Treaty after the first 8-8 plan is complete, there won't be a second 8-8 plan because the treaty says, no, you can't do this.
Yeah, the treaty implements a building holiday.
Yee.
And then it's largely as written, history as written.
Pretty much, yeah.
Not really. Because if Japan goes into the treaty with the 8-8 plan, first 8-8 plan complete, that is a lot more capital ships to account for. You're probably looking at a lot more ships that America and the UK gets to build because of the treaty to accommodate for the 8-8 plan. Unless somehow, some ridiculous reason, both powers allow Japan to, maintain the current 8-8 fleet without any supplementary to their own, which is not happening. Basically, the idea is that 8-8 program on time. I mean, well, no, okay, now we're getting into the issue of we need to discuss what the actual 8-8 plan is. Because you're not getting a Tosa or an Amagi by 1915.
The first 8-8 program is basically... So you're based on about pushing forwards the Nagatos, basically. That's what you're talking about.
That still doesn't change anything. That's still on the 6-4.
Oh, yeah.
By 1915.
Oh, yeah, the Tosas and the Amagi.
8-8, yeah, 8-8 has to include Tosa and Amagi.
Yeah, you can't... There's no way they are even... They're not even going to be started by 1915.
I mean, they could start in 1915. It will look different.
Well, Knight, yes, the earthquake will damage things. It'll hurt the economy. But the Kanto earthquake's role in the rise of Japanese militarism is somewhat overstated, I feel.
But that isn't even the issue. The question now is stating that the 8-8 plan will be done before Washington Naval Treaty, so the earthquake means nothing.
But yeah, I feel like we have dug into this question a little bit here. It's a little bit confusing in terms of what exactly is going on. I'm trying.
I mean, if need be, I could just go talk to Slayer after this and just.
I mean, we are going to be doing the Hoy game after this, and I think are you gonna stick around for that, Moe?
Maybe.
And well, yeah, that wasn't including also the Kawachis are proper battleships, Slayer.
No, yes, but that is not the 8-8 plan. In 1910, the Kawachis was not a part of the 8-8 plan.
Yeah, but also the Kawachis are not semi-dreadnoughts; they're dreadnoughts. Who's told you the Satsumas that come before them are semi-dreadnoughts?
The 8-8 plan starts with the Congos and the Fusos. They are the first of the 8-8 plans. That's why the Congos were ordered by 1911 and Fusos later on. But you get my point. The Kawachis were never a part of that plan because Kawachis were not viewed under the Japanese Admiralties as a future-proof modern platform. In essence, the 8-8 plan is made in 1910, or is authorized in 1910, and its plans is to induct large amount of modern platforms, which sadly Kawachi's was not. It is the first 8-8 plan is the Japanese expansion plan, in essence, to their navy. The second 8-8 plan has to include Nagato because Nagato was still being built at the time as the modern platform. So they're starting off from there in the second 8-8 plan. So I think this question is asked with some wrong assumptions from the beginning, so I think we should probably just cap it there now. Just have us, yeah.
Are you saying that we should burn the heretic?
Do not
I don't want to call them heretic,
do
but
not,
alright.
do not burn the heretic.
But that's heresy. I will burn
Anyway.
you now, and then I will burn the heretic.
Anyway, right. Thank you everyone for coming. There will have to be a catch-up ramblings at some point tomorrow, sugar.
Good luck with that.
Oh, sugar, I'm going shopping for the holiday. Bastarding shite.
Fleet is going on a shopping episode. Everybody run.
Shit. Try and squeeze it in on Sunday. That's not going to work either. Fuck. Shit. And I'll see if I can fit it in this weekend. Keep an eye out for information in the announcements channel.
Yeah.
I don't, because I've just realized I don't know if we're going to be able to fit it in this weekend, but keep your eyes peeled. I don't know if there's going to be ramblings on Monday. Depends entirely on what I'm doing in regards to getting prepped for Japan, because I start my travels on the Wednesday, fly out on the Thursday. So it is very close to the punch. So I'm in full holiday prep mode basically after this weekend. So I will try and fit in something to get the rest of these questions squared away before I go. But we'll see how we go. Keep your eyes peeled for announcements. I will be announcing something because I'm now not working, so I can afford to devote the other half of the other 3/4. So usually 3/4 of my brain is working, 3/4 of my brain is on, and then 1/4 of my brain is on ramblings and everything else. But
and
luckily,
then 3/4 of his brain is on math.
yeah, pretty much. But luckily, because being honest with prepping for holidays isn't as stressful as work, I can do half and half, so I should be able to make an announcement telling everyone what the actual outcome is. So keep your eyes posted, and I'll let you know. Take care.